Chapter 288. I wonder which family this unlucky kid is from. The middle-aged scholar shook his head in disdain. Idiot. Kotomi could only make this comment about Wang Ju in her heart. Hehe, this is going to be a good show. Xiao Dai giggled as she looked at the spirit vessel that was moving forward quickly. Her eyes were filled with interest. At the foot of the 1,000-foot mountain of swords, almost half of the cultivators looked at Wang Ju with pity. It was as if they were looking at a dead person. What was this place? This was a secret realm created by the heavenly demons of the ancient demon race. Every time it opened, more than half of the cultivators, or even hundreds of thousands of cultivators, would die on the spot. The mountain of swords in front of them was obviously filled with a murderous aura. In just one move, thousands of cultivators had died under thousands of swords. The mangled corpses were at their feet. In a situation where most of the cultivators did not move, Wang Ju dared to challenge the danger of the mountain of swords. They did not know whether to call him an idiot, stupid, or fearless. However, none of the cultivators spoke. They just silently watched the figure of the spirit vessel climbing the mountain of swords. No matter what, there were people who were willing to be experimental subjects. No one would waste such a good opportunity to see the power of the mountain of swords. The spirit vessel under Wang Ju's feet emitted countless rays of light. Countless mysterious cloud seals could be faintly seen circulating and flashing on the body of the vessel. It was as fast as lightning. It was an upper-grade flying magic item. TSK. Just as Wang Ju was filled with excitement and thought about how he was going to make a name for himself in the immortal cultivation world, there was a loud TSK sound from the mountain of swords. Thousands of swords in the color of swords soared into the sky and gathered in mid-air to form a gigantic blood sword. It slashed down on the spirit vessel. It landed on the spirit vessel. The defensive formation and restrictions on the spirit vessel only emitted a faint glow before they were annihilated in an instant. The entire spirit vessel was split open. The swords scattered and turned into countless swords of swords. They then turned the broken spirit vessel into fine powder. Wang Ju, who was on the spirit vessel, did not even have the chance to scream before he was brutally shredded into pieces. Who? Seeing this scene, countless cultivators couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their hearts skipped a beat, and they were so frightened by the terrifying scene of the blood saber attack that their faces turned pale. This blade already possesses the full power of a nascent soul stage cultivator. Kotomi's expression changed slightly, but she soon regained her composure. She opened her red lips and spoke of her understanding. The middle-aged scholar nodded and said, "The blood saber in the saber prison locks the space." That youth just now was only at the foundation establishment stage, but his blood saber had the power of a nascent soul stage cultivator. If it was a nascent soul stage cultivator, the blood saber would be as strong as heaven's punishment. No matter how powerful you are, you will not be able to escape death. Then how are we going to cross this blade mountain? Xiao Dai blinked her eyes and asked in a clear voice. Her expression was filled with curiosity. Very simple, walk over. The middle-aged scholar smiled faintly and pointed at the 1,000-jong tall mountain of blades. He said, "From here, step by step, walk up the mountain of blades. Although the saber chi under your feet will become stronger with every step you take, as long as your cultivation is high enough, you have good magical treasures, good protective armor, and the protection of your seniors in the sect, you will still have a chance to cross the mountain of blades as long as you are careful and cautious. Look, there are already people crossing the blade mountain." Following the direction he was pointing at, there were already many cultivators ahead. They were wearing suits of armor with glowing armor and boots that they had prepared beforehand. They were climbing forward on the tips of the blood-red sabers. Every step they took would unleash a blood-red saber aura at the cultivators. It was extremely ferocious. However, the saber chi at the foot of the mountain could be blocked by even a chi condensation stage cultivator. No cultivator would die in such a situation. What was truly terrifying was that the saber chi rushing out of the blade mountain was endless. If you blocked one, there would be 10 or 100 behind. With every step forward, the saber chi would become stronger. It was like stepping on the tip of a blade to move forward. Once you were knocked down, It would be a terrifying scene of thousands of blades rolling. However, how could a blade mountain stop people's hearts? It could stop desire. Almost all the checkpoints in the secret realm were well understood, and a lot of preparation had been made for each of them. It should be known that among the cultivators, there were nascent soul stage, out-of-body stage, and even stronger cultivators. How could a mountain of blades stop them in their tracks? Let's go. The middle-aged Confucian looked confident. He waved his hand slightly and said, I've only heard of the Blade Mountain and the Sea of Fire. This is the first time I've experienced it. Today, we'll go and challenge this Blade Mountain. After saying that, he took the lead. Kotomi and Xiao Dai heard and looked at each other. Kotomi took a step forward, and a trace of determination appeared on her face. She said, this time, I came to see Big Brother Di again. Whether it's a Blade Mountain or a Sea of Fire in front of me, I won't stop. After saying that, she landed on the tip of the blood saber below. The tip of the saber was sharp and revealed a sharpness, but under her feet, there were circles of green ripples that rippled like water. Kill. Men of our generation should have the heart to die. Brandishing a blade to cut down the enemy doves, and using their heads as wine cups. Don't let a man's body wrap a woman's heart with cowardice. In the ancient starry sky, Di Shitian was not a cowardly person who was afraid of death. Seeing hundreds of millions of demons charging dauntlessly to fight against the demons, if he became timid and left just like that, he would find himself an excuse that where there is life, there is hope. Then, he would not be him. He felt the surging murderous aura on the battlefield and heard the deafening battle cries. There was no longer any hesitation in his heart. All that was left was a surge of heroic spirit. The domineering aura that he originally had burst out of his body. Although he was only as weak as an adult and a child among the demon clan, under the contrast of this domineering aura, he was 1,000 feet tall. His entire demon body seemed to have become incomparably tall in an instant. Bang! 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 I'm a man, and I should live with my comrades. Even if I die, I won't let down my manly blood. Kill! 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 Sakra's eyes shone brightly, filled with determination. He already had the heart to die. Seeing that he was also a man of the demon race, even if he was to die, he didn't shrink back at all. How could he be a coward? Between life and death, there was a great terror, but he had no fear. He only had the heart of a man in his chest. Step by step, he stepped forward on the starlight. His steps were firm, and there was no fear in his heart. He only stared at the 8-armed demon god in front of him. The demon god was thousands of feet tall, and there were weapons in each of its 8 arms. The hair on its body was like steel needles, and its angry gaze could shatter one's soul. It was frightening. Kill. Indra, however, was fearless. The tiger soul had already expanded to a length of several hundred feet. The golden amber divine light circulated around the blade, bursting forth with 1,000 feet of sharpness. He slashed towards the demonic god, wanting to behead him. He completely ignored the 8 weapons that the demonic god smashed towards him. One slash. Facing the demon god, Di Shitian knew that he only had the strength of one slash. One slash to cut off its head, and even if it died, it would be enough to laugh. This saber strike could cut through water and sever mountains. It could cut through the sky. In this slash, his essence, spirit, demonic essence, and comprehension were all in it. Bang! This was a peak slash. With one slash, the demon god was beheaded. When Di Shitian saw this scene, his 1,000 feet tall demonic body was smashed to pieces by the 8-armed demon god. Countless pieces of flesh exploded. If I die on the battlefield, even if I die, I won't let my heart down. When his demonic body was destroyed, his words were like thunder. He said it righteously. There was great terror between life and death. If I die a worthy death, I won't be afraid. In the second level of the secret realm, there were islands floating in the air. The surroundings were filled with clouds, sometimes gathering and sometimes dispersing. There were thousands of changes, forming all kinds of birds and beasts, and sometimes dispersing. This was a sea of clouds. In the sea of clouds, these islands stood tall and upright. On each of these islands, There was an ancient temple with an extraordinary aura. In front of each temple, there was a high platform. On the high platform, there was a purple divine pillar that reached the sky. It shot straight into the clouds. Silver hair, who do you think will be the first to come out, other than us old guys? I think that niece of yours is not bad. She's as pretty as jade, and her voice is clear and her body is soft. She shouldn't pass. Hihi, let's make a deal. Let your niece take me as her master. I guarantee that she'll improve 1,000 times in a day. There were already several figures standing on the high platform. From the demonic aura they didn't deliberately conceal, it was clear that they were the strongest of the demon race. There were 4 of them. Among them, there was a young man in a blood-red robe with a wretched face and a lustful look in his eyes. He seemed to be born with an evil aura. At this moment, he was standing next to Silver Hair, who Di Shetien had met a few times. Silver Hair's silver-white hair suddenly surged behind him. He glanced indifferently at the wretched young man and said, "You lustful dragon, if you dare to have any ideas about I'll make you mate with a bunch of sows in your dreams. I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to die from exhaustion." Hiss. The wretched young man sucked in a breath of cold air and his expression turned serious. However, this expression didn't last long. He returned to his frivolous appearance and shrugged. "Silver Hair, you win. You want me to mate with a bunch of sows in heat." At this point, he felt uncomfortable and shook off the goosebumps all over his body. He moved away from Silver Hair and said helplessly, "Forget it, you're just a butterfly. I'm such a pure and good demon. I can't afford to offend you. It's coming out." At this moment, the woman standing on the high platform, who had been holding a jade-green bamboo but whose face couldn't be seen clearly, suddenly spoke. Immediately, the 4 people on the high platform looked at the center of the platform. At the center of the high platform, there was a strange formation. Mysterious lines connected together, and at this moment, it was emitting traces of black light. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 289. This formation seemed to be some kind of teleportation formation, but upon closer inspection, it was extremely mysterious and exuded an ancient and boundless aura. Clearly, it had existed for more than 100 years or 1,000 years. Interesting. I remember that only the 4 of us of the older generation of demon kings are here. The celestial scented fox king said she would come back then, but for some reason, she never appeared. Could it be that scented fox? The evil-looking youth looked at the scene in front of him and guessed. No. At this moment, the last middle-aged man in a golden robe on the stage refuted. "When I came, I passed by the little fox's Qingqiu mountain and went in to ask for a jug of wine. I wanted to invite her to come with me, but she clearly told me that she would not be participating in this mystic realm. It seems that she was injured and even injured to the core." "What? That old bastard of the human race did it?" When the only woman in green heard this, she slowly looked away from the bamboo in her hand. A cold light suddenly shot out from her eyes and landed on the golden-robed man. She said, "Could it be that those old bastards of the human race are really going to exterminate the demon race? Are they going to attack us 8 demon kings?" There was a hint of coldness in her voice. The silver-haired youth raised the gourd in his hand and a stream of golden wine flowed into his mouth. He said indifferently, "Those old bastards have long wanted to get rid of the 8 of us. As long as they get rid of us, they will attack the entire demon race. They have been waiting for this day for more than a year or 2. It's not strange. Hehe, if they want to get rid of me, the Blood Dragon King, let's see if they have the ability." The evil-looking youth laughed evilly and his eyes shone with a lustful light. "The female cultivators of the human race are all so beautiful. If they piss me off, I'll kill my way to their sects and capture hundreds or thousands of them. I'll bring them back to my blood dragon pool and have a naked party. H, you lustful dragon. Sooner or later, you'll die on a woman's belly," the golden-robed demon king said disdainfully. Just as they were talking, the light of the great formation in the center suddenly blazed brightly. Suddenly, a dense black light burst forth, completely covering the center. The light only appeared for an instant, and once it expanded, it immediately shrank back. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared and quickly retreated. Once the black light faded away, a domineering aura that was still exuding from the person's body spread out in all directions, filling the entire platform. It's him. When the golden-robed Demon King saw the new figure clearly, he could not help but let out a slightly surprised voice. Clearly, he was a little surprised. Little brother Di, we meet again. A rare faint smile appeared on Silverhair's face as he nodded and said, "Congratulations on passing the courage test. I really didn't misjudge you." Silver-haired Demon King? The confusion in Di Shitian's eyes gradually dissipated as he scanned his surroundings. Immediately, the silhouettes of Silverhair and the other three entered his vision. Vaguely, there was still a trace of indescribable confusion. Didn't I perish together with the 8-armed demon god in the celestial battlefield? What is going on? Di Shitian frowned slightly and muttered to himself in surprise. His entire mind and consciousness were still stuck on the scene in the celestial battlefield. At that time, hundreds of millions of demon clan members bravely fought to their deaths against the endless demon gods. Countless demon clan members died, and countless amounts of mysterious yellow blood spilled in the starry sky. Those scenes were still fresh in his mind. Moreover, he was filled with passion and pride as he angrily perished together with an 8-armed demon god. The scene of his final death was still replaying in his mind. At that time, the feeling of death was definitely not fake. His entire demon body was completely destroyed and shattered into thousands of pieces. The pain of the separation of flesh and blood and the destruction of the divine soul could be clearly felt. No matter how he looked at it, it did not seem fake. It was still vivid in his mind. Haha. Come, have a drink first. I'll tell you in detail later. Silverhair looked at Di Shitian affectionately as he gently tossed the wine gourd in his hand. Di Shitian received it in his hand and without any trace of politeness, he poured the precious spirit wine into his mouth in big gulps. Great. His Adam's apple moved as he made gulping sounds. A whiff of alcohol rushed up to his head, and he could not help but spit out a sentence. Before that, let me introduce you. When the silver-haired man saw this, he smiled faintly and glanced at the evil-looking young man and the other two. He wanted to introduce them, so he said, "This one with an evil aura and lustful eyes is the Blood Dragon King, Shui Yutian. Di Shitian greets the Blood WRM King." Di Shitian looked at the evil-looking young man and greeted him with a neutral expression. "This is the Haze Demon King, Bai Ziyan. Greetings. This is the Golden-Winged Bat King, Qi Yi." With Silverhair's introduction, Di Shitian got to know the few people in front of him. However, there was also a trace of indescribable shock in his heart. If it was in the past, even if he heard this, he would not have any reaction. However, it was different now. During this period of time, he had a good cramming of all kinds of information about the demon clan. Among them, he focused on understanding the 8 great demon kings of the demon clan. Although he did not know what powerful supernatural powers they each had. At least, he had a general understanding of who they were. None of the demon kings in front of him were simple. Any one of them could stir up endless waves. There was no other reason. The 4 in front of him were actually 4 of the 8 great demon kings. If the Sky Fragrance Fox King, Su Tianxiang, was included, he had seen more than half of the 8 great demon kings. Such a fortuitous encounter was truly unbelievable. Although it was only a simple introduction, with Di Shitian's insight, he had a general impression of the 4 in front of him in an instant. Among them, the Blood Dragon King looked evil and seemed to be an unscrupulous master. The Misty Cloud Demon King was cold and indifferent. She didn't seem to care about other things. She only focused on the green bamboo in her hand. It seemed that it would be a little difficult to get along with them. As for the Golden-Winged Bat King, it was a little difficult to grasp. TSK, not bad, not bad. King Bloodflood Dragon sized up Sakura, and his eyes glowed. He smiled evilly and said, "I didn't expect that in these few years that I've been roaming around the continent, there would actually be such a hero like you among the demon race. You can actually pass the test set by Lord Sky Demon in such a short time. You're really amazing. You're worth making friends with, little brother. If you have time in the future, go directly to the Blood Dragon Pool to find me. At that time, I'll definitely entertain you well and make you forget to return. A trace of pride appeared on his face. You perverted dragon, go to the side. I have something to tell little brother Di so that he won't be too confused. Silver Hair glanced at the Blood Dragon King. Seeing this, the Blood Dragon King could only laugh dryly and walk to the side. Little brother Di, you must have a lot of doubts now. Haha, it's okay. Just tell me. I'll try my best to answer you, Silver Hair said with a faint smile. There was a hint of intimacy in his tone. Di Shitian could naturally feel it. However, he was not too surprised. His eyes flashed, and he asked bluntly, Shitian does have a lot of things that I don't understand. Just now, I was in a starry sky and perished together with the demon god. The feeling of death was very real. What happened? Also, you mentioned the courage test just now. I want to know all these. Wanwang Demon King can answer me. Sakura and Silver Hair had met each other more than once or twice, so he wasn't polite at all. Once he opened his mouth, he went straight to the point. Alright, I'll tell you everything today. Anyway, you've passed the courage test. You're qualified to know what happened in the mystic realm. Silver Hair said indifferently, you should know that the heavenly demon mystic realm is actually a mystic realm created by the supreme experts of the heavenly demon realm of the demon clan. They also set up various tests. However, you may not know this, but this mystic realm was actually the last refuge of the demon clan after the Antiquity Age. A place for survival. The descendants of the demon clan who migrated here after the catastrophe. They are also the last batch of elites. The purpose is to recuperate, so that the demon clan will not be completely annihilated. Descendants of the demon clan, recuperate? Di Shitian's eyes flashed and he muttered, I see. I understand now. The purple thunder sweet rain is indeed used to activate the intelligence of the demon clan. No wonder. In this case, there should still be a large number of demon clan living in the mystic realm. After so many years, their number. What kind of person was Sakura? After hearing half of it, he immediately thought of the purple thunder rain that he saw previously. To the demon race, that was the best gift from the heavens. Using it to activate intelligence, who knew how many demon clan members could be born just once? After so many years, how many demon clan members would there be in the mystic realm? Silver Hair heard Di Shitian's murmur, and his originally calm eyes suddenly shone with a threatening light. You actually saw the purple thunder sweet rain? Even the other three demon kings looked at him in an instant. Obviously, they were very concerned. That's right. Di Shitian had nothing to hide, so he told Silver Hair about what happened before. When Silver Hair heard it, he fell into deep thought. However, after he finished listening to it, they looked at each other in an extremely tacit manner and did not bring up the topic again. To obtain the heavenly demon's inheritance, one must pass the test set by the heavenly demon lord. Once all of them pass, one will be qualified to inherit it. Courage is one of the tests, the silver-haired man continued. Wait. Di Shitian frowned slightly and suddenly thought of something. He asked, can human cultivators also participate in the heavenly demon lord's test? Human cultivators? They are not worthy. Silver Hair snorted and said disdainfully, the heavenly demon lord had long planned for the human race. To be continued. If you want to know the rest, please go to www.chidien.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 290. After retreating the last of the demon clan's elites into the secret realm, Lord Heaven Demon predicted that the human race would definitely replace the strong ancient races and become the main characters of the mainland. Although the mystic realm would open once every few thousand years to search for inheritors, it would definitely not be able to hide from the senses of human cultivators. Therefore, from the very beginning, Milord had no intention of completely covering up the news of the secret realm. The silver-haired man clearly knew a lot about the mystic realm. It was as if Di Shetien was qualified to come here. He didn't hide anything and told him everything. Furthermore, he had made preparations in advance. He had set up a killing trap in the secret realm specifically for those who aren't from the demon clan. Once those cultivators enter the secret realm, what awaits them is a mountain of blades and a sea of flames. Half of them must die before they reach the heaven-reaching yin-yang bridge. The silver-haired man's calm words revealed a bone-chilling coldness. "TSK, TSK. Shui Yutian shouted out in a strange voice, "I heard that the mountain of blades and sea of flames is an inch of blood for every inch of the mountain of blades and sea of flames is an inch of ash for every inch of the mountain of blades. If it wasn't for the fact that I can't go over and witness it with my own eyes, I, old flood dragon, would really want to go over and take a look. Unfortunately, there's no other way. Our demon clan can only take this heart-seeking path specially prepared by Lord Sky Demon. Brother Di, do you know that you just passed the first question of the Wenshin path? Are you brave?" Bravery? Di Shetien frowned slightly. Ever since he entered the arcane realm, everything had been shrouded in a layer of fog. Many of them were very confused. "That's right. Do you see the shrine on the island? That is the heart-questioning palace." Silver Hair poured a few mouthfuls of wine into his mouth as he pointed at the shrine that stood tall on the island and said, "Ask your heart in the Hall of Conscience, ask if you are brave. You just came out from the heart-questioning palace. In this heart-questioning hall, what is tested is your bravery. If you are brave enough, you will pass. If you are not brave enough, you will not appear here." He listened quietly without interrupting. He knew that these words were not things that outsiders would understand. If he listened carefully, there would be benefits. When he heard this, he couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. It turned out that there wasn't only one heart-questioning hall. The heart-questioning hall on this island tested one's courage. Once one entered the hall, different scenes would naturally appear. It was used to test one's courage. For example, what Di Shetien saw was the desperate battle in the starry sky with the demon gods. Every demonic god was 100 times or even 1,000 times more powerful than himself. Facing death directly was the terror of facing life and death. Whether you were brave or not, 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 everything could be revealed. A person without great courage, when faced with such a life and death situation, perhaps would only give himself the thought of leaving a useful body for revenge in the future. Little did they know that once they retreated, the shadow of the demon god would be branded in their hearts, and they would never have the courage to appear in front of the demon god again. If you were brave, you were brave. If you were not brave, you were not brave. What was real could not be fake, and what was fake could not be real. The existence of the heart-questioning hall was also the true essence of stimulating the courage of those who came. If Di Shetien had been timid on the battlefield, it would be a different scene now. As for the demon clan who retreated in the face of life and death, what would happen to them? Although Di Shetien did not ask, he could imagine that they had lost a great opportunity, and their future achievements would be limited. I see. Since there is a test of courage, then there is a heart-questioning hall that tests other aspects of nature. Di Shetien said thoughtfully in a deep voice. In fact, there was already a rough guess. Haha, if you can pass the test of the heart-questioning hall, your future achievements will at least not be below us old guys. That's right. Do you see the islands around us? Each island is different. There are a total of 5 heart-questioning palaces, and this is the first one. The silver-haired man said casually, as for the other 4 heart-questioning palaces, we don't know what they ask. I don't know. This answer couldn't help but cause Sakura to be slightly astonished. Little brother. The golden-winged Bat King narrowed his eyes and looked at Di Shetien, saying meaningfully, the secret territory only opens once every few thousand years. Now, the 4 of us do have the title of the 8 great demon kings, but in the past, the few of us were just like you now, the lowest juniors of the demon clan who entered the secret territory. To be able to pass the test of the first heart-questioning hall is already a great fortune, and this also allowed us to stand out among the demon clan. To have the status we have today. The heart-questioning hall tested your will. As long as you passed any one of them, you could say that you had the cultivation not inferior to Silver Hair and the others. It should be known that Silver Hair and the others' title of Demon King was not fake. Just like those little demons who had just condensed their inner cores, they had cultivated their inner cores to the third transformation and had the strength of a true Demon King in the various realms of the Demon Clan. Once you passed the heart-questioning hall, your mind would be clear, and when you encountered bottlenecks, it would be exceptionally easy to break through. This was the benefit of the heart-questioning hall. Di Shitian suddenly understood and asked for an explanation. It turned out that after passing the heart-questioning hall, on this high platform, when the time was up, two passages would appear. One of them was the sky-piercing divine pillar that soared into the sky. The other passage was the passage to leave the heart-questioning hall. The heart-questioning hall, every step of the heart-questioning hall. There were 5 halls, and you would be asked 5 times. If you passed, you would have the qualifications to climb to the peak. You would have the ability to inherit the inheritance of the mystic realm. Although Silver Hair and the others did not say why they did not continue to step into the second heart-questioning hall, Di Shitian vaguely understood. After all, the heart-questioning hall asked directly to one's heart. If you passed, it would be fine as it would clear your heart and increase your ability to climb to the peak. But if you failed, it would be equivalent to leaving a shadow in your heart. You would not be able to achieve great success in your cultivation. Swoosh. Just as Di Shitian and the others were slowly drinking and chatting, the high platform under their feet suddenly trembled. The teleportation formation that Di Shitian had walked out from earlier shone brightly again. This was the sign that another demon had passed the heart-questioning hall's test and escaped. Under the gaze of Sakura and the other demon kings, it wasn't long before another figure appeared on the high platform. However, at the same time that this figure appeared, an unusually cold chill seemed to descend from the sky, causing the surrounding air to become as cold as winter. Unknowingly, the high platform was already covered by a layer of ice crystals. What a cold air! Di Shitian, Silver Hair, and the others' eyes lit up as they could not help but praise in their hearts. They clearly knew that this cold air was emitted by the new Demon King. The most peculiar thing was that the cold air was not emitted deliberately, but was a natural action. In such a situation, if the original body of the demon was not of the cold attribute, then it was some kind of domineering cold attribute cultivation method. Looking closely, they saw that the person in front of them was about 16 or 17 years old. His height was not bad, about 1.8 meters, but he had a natural baby face. His face did not have the cuteness of a baby, but a cold expression that could not be melted. He had an aura that was thousands of miles away, and behind his head, there was a head of snow-white hair that was white as snow. When it fell, it added to the coldness. His clothes were as white as snow, and in his hand was a long snow-white whip that was cold and threatening. This long whip was like a ferocious serpent with its head as the head. The dense snow-white scales constantly glowed with a crystalline luster. It seemed to be full of spiritual energy, and was a rare divine weapon. Its name was Ice Spirit Cold Glass Whip. Silver Hair let out a short cry of bewilderment. He looked at the newcomer with interest and said, "Back in ancient times, countless members of the glacial glass race fell in the Great War. In all these years, there has been no news of the glacial glass race. I thought that the bloodline of the cold glass tribe would be cut off. I didn't expect to see it again here. It seems that our demon clan is still lucky. Many of the ancient bloodlines may not be extinct. Little guy, what's your name?" In the ancient times, the cold glass tribe could be said to be quite famous among the demon clan. They belonged to the natural flood dragon tribe, not a tribe born from the mating of the dragon tribe and the snake tribe. They were truly born of the heaven and earth, and were born of the cold attribute. Most of them lived in bitter cold places and were born with the powerful ability to control the cold energy. They cultivated the cold attribute cultivation method. They were endowed with supreme talent. Their combat strength was unusually strong. In the demon clan, they belonged to the top demon clan. Unfortunately, after the ancient times, there was no more news of Han Li. Therefore, whether it was the demon clan or the immortal cultivation world, they all thought that the cold glass tribe's bloodline had been completely extinct. They didn't expect to meet him here. The body of the young man in front of him was the ancient Han Li Di Shitian couldn't tell, but how could he hide it from Silverhair and the other demon kings who had been famous for thousands of years? They exposed his identity the moment they opened their mouths. Lung Wuqing. 3 cold words came out of his mouth. Seeing that Di Shitian and the others only said a name, they naturally moved to the side, as if they were not interested in talking. At this moment, the teleportation array on the stage lit up again. Not long after, another demon clan member who passed the test appeared. The person who appeared this time surprised Di Shitian slightly. It was none other than Silverhair's niece, Yu who had always been by his side. She was just a little girl, but she actually passed the test of courage. She could not be underestimated. Rumble. When Yu appeared, there were already 6 demon kings on the high platform. They did not hesitate at all. The high platform under their feet trembled violently as if there was an earthquake. Swoosh. A divine pillar that reached the sky fell from the void without any warning amidst the violent tremors. Rays of black divine light burst forth, emitting a vast pressure. It stood in front of them. It stood side by side with the divine pillar from before. It was boundlessly majestic. Another tall obelisk appeared out of thin air between the 2 divine pillars. It seemed to be some kind of guidance. It's already the end of the month. Those of you with tickets, please help me out. To be continued, please go to www.chidian.com for more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 291. As soon as the obelisk appeared, boom, boom, boom. The entire huge stone tablet trembled violently. The body of the tablet rumbled. Countless strange divine characters burst forth from the top of the tablet. It was like a cloud seal. One could clearly feel the aura emitted from the tablet. It was simply like a tall mountain. It was incomparably heavy. Sakura, who was standing in front of the tablet, felt suffocated for no reason. At the same time, the divine characters on the obelisk flowed and suddenly condensed into 6 purple lights that rushed toward Di Shitian's group. They were so fast that they didn't even have a chance to react. In fact, Silverhair, Blood Dragon King, and the other monster kings didn't have any intention of dodging. They directly opened their minds and allowed the purple lights to rush into their bodies. As soon as the purple lights entered his body, Di Shitian immediately felt a huge amount of information crazily pouring into his mind. He had to concentrate to accept this inexplicable information. After a long time, his closed eyes suddenly opened. There was a light in his eyes and a look of understanding appeared on his face. He said calmly, "I see. The black divine pillar is the way out, and the purple divine pillar is to continue on the Wenshin Road." The information poured into his mind from the obelisk was actually more or less what Silverhair had said before. It was just a brief overview of the Wenshin Road. At this moment, he could choose whether to go or not. Silverhair looked at Di Shitian and smiled faintly. "Little brother Di, do you want to go forward or retreat?" "Go forward, of course, to continue forward." Di Shitian didn't hesitate. He raised his eyebrows and naturally revealed a trace of confidence and awe-inspiring pride. A light flashed in his hand and the wine god's gourd appeared in his hand. He poured wine into his mouth and laughed. Sky Monster Secret Realm, Wenshin Road, only appears once every few thousand years. The first question is whether I am brave. I answer, in the face of life and death, I dare to face the great terror. I am not afraid. The only thing that leads me is death. I am not afraid of death. How can I be afraid of the Wenshin Road? It is Di Shitian's honor to be able to meet all of you here. I am willing to drink a cup of wine with all of you. In the heart-questioning palace, one had to be cleansed of all impurities and face one's true heart. The Sky Demon placed courage as the first test. First, it asked if one had the courage to face life and death. Second, it asked if one had the courage to step onto the path of heart questioning. In an instant, Di Shitian had already decided that even if there was a mountain of swords and a sea of flames in front of him, he would bravely take this path so that he would not regret it again in the future. Without fear in his heart, he would naturally be heroic. With a wave of his hand, 6 wine cups appeared out of thin air. The wine god's gourd lightly touched the surface of the water, filling the wine cups to the brim. This was 1,000-year-old spirit wine. With a light tap of his finger, 5 of the cups flew towards Silverhair, and the others. He didn't care whether they were willing to receive them or not. He raised his head and downed the wine in his cup. The wine cup fell to the ground and shattered into thousands of pieces. He casually swung his sleeves, and Tiger Soul appeared in his hand. The tip of the saber fell to the ground, and he pulled it out with him. Sparks appeared on the platform as he strode forward. In the blink of an eye, he had already entered the purple divine pillar that connected to heaven. Purple light flashed, and when he looked again, Di Shitian was already gone. How bold! When the golden-winged Bat King saw this, his eyes flashed with golden light, and he shouted, "I have been regretting giving up back then for thousands of years. Now, no matter what, I, old Jin, have to take this Wenshin road. Everyone, I'll take my leave first." After saying that, he also drank the wine in front of him and stepped towards the purple divine pillar with an indomitable aura. TSK, old Jin, you have to wait for me." The Blood Dragon King also drank the spirit wine and went forward together. For a moment, it seemed that they were affected by Di Shitian's heroic spirit. The 6 of them did not shrink back at the last moment. They all finished the wine in front of them and stepped on the Wenshin road together. As for whether there would be other demons passing the test after them, no one cared. Human cultivators walked on the Mountain of Swords and Sea of Flames, while demons walked on the Wenshin road. However, no matter which path it was inevitable that they would walk on the path in front of the heavenly yin-yang bridge. Sigh. On a lake, there was a pavilion standing on the waves. There was a pleasant fragrance all around. There were lotus flowers in the lake, and endless spring scenery could be seen. It was a myriad of scenes. In the pavilion, a beautiful woman stood there. Between her jade-like right hand, there was a light purple flower petal gently held between her fingers. She gently played with it. In the air, there were waves of dense chi whistling, entering the flower petal. A pair of beautiful eyes fell on the lotus, but her mind was not on admiring the flower. Could it be that I'm really possessed? Why would I come here in the early morning one after another to hear the sound of that guqin? No, it's impossible. Why would I think of him inexplicably? That day, I had already decided not to have anything to do with him. She sighed softly, and there was a rare trace of confusion in her eyes. The person in front of her was none other than Chen Shi, who was in the 100 Flowers Valley. She didn't know why, but in the past, Sakura would play a song outside the valley every morning. Although Chen Shi didn't intend to forgive him, it was impossible for the sound of the zither not to spread into the valley. The trace of artistic conception revealed in the zither song indeed made her feel relaxed and happy. If it was said that in the beginning, listening to the zither in the early morning was just a dispensable thing. But for several months, the first thing he did every morning was to sit in the pavilion in the middle of the lake and listen to the zither song that would not change no matter what happened. Later on, it became a habit. It was as if she would feel a little uncomfortable if she did not hear the music for a day. When Di Shitian was still in the southern barbarian lands, she did not feel it. However, since Di Shitian and Medusa left the southern barbarian lands for Yanbo Island, naturally, the sound of the guqin stopped every morning. At first, she was not used to it. However, every time she walked to the pavilion, she would unconsciously think of the previous sound of the guqin and the person who played it. She could not help but feel distressed. Di Shitian, do you really want me to give in so easily? A trace of firmness flashed in Chen Shi's eyes. She did not think about it anymore. She just sat quietly in the pavilion and absorbed the essence of flowers emitted by the flowers in the valley as usual. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat, which made her unable to calm down at all. An unusual worry emerged in her heart. She slowly stood up and looked up outside the southern barbarian lands. A strong aura was rising from outside the southern barbarian lands. Moreover, this aura was constantly approaching the southern barbarian lands, as if its target was the southern barbarian lands. It's finally here. Chen Shi's expression turned solemn, and her eyes revealed a dignified look. She said, The human cultivators are really going to attack the demon clan. They actually took advantage of the opening of the heavenly demon secret realm to launch an attack. The other southern barbarian demons could not feel it, but how could it escape Chen Shi's perception? The strong aura in the distance carried the aura of a cultivator. Obviously, it must be a powerhouse in the immortal cultivation world, and a powerhouse above the core formation realm. Even Chen Shi felt a strong threat from that aura. In fact, Chen Shi had long expected that there would be such a day sooner or later. Therefore, when Di Shitian and Medusa went to Yanbo Island, she did not go. Instead, she stayed in the southern barbarian lands. She was afraid that the sects in the immortal cultivation world would suddenly attack and wipe out the entire southern barbarian demon clan in one fell swoop when the two powerful forces in the southern barbarian lands left together. This day had already been planted when the southern barbarian demons fought with the thousands of rogue cultivators and left them all in the southern barbarian lands. From that day on, Chen Shi had never expected that the cultivators in the immortal cultivation world would let the southern barbarian lands go easily. The reason why they did not attack immediately was that the heavenly demon secret realm was about to open, and those big sects did not have the energy to care about the southern barbarian lands. But there was no luck. No matter whether it was sooner or later, what was going to come would come sooner or later. Chen Shi was afraid that the cultivators would take advantage of the empty southern barbarian lands to launch a surprise attack, but the reality would not be as expected. Although she did not want to, it seemed that the thing she was most worried about had still come. If you want to attack the southern barbarian demon clan, even the strongest cultivators may not be able to defeat us, let alone nascent soul realm cultivators. If you push too much, I will make sure you all stay in the southern barbarian lands even if I have to pay a certain price. A cold light suddenly flashed in Chen Shi's eyes. There was a rare murderous intent. At this time, in the east of the southern barbarian lands, in the sky, there was a huge divine boat that covered the heaven and earth. On it, there was a large group of immortal cultivators. With a quick look, there were over 1,000 of them. Among these cultivators, standing at the bow of the boat was a middle-aged man with a divine aura. His eyes flickered from time to time. He looked particularly different. A dignified aura was emitted from his body. Southern barbarian lands. A small southern barbarian lands can actually kill several elite disciples of my Thousand Beasts sect and kill my core formation realm cultivators. I'm afraid that 1 or 2 demon kings have already appeared in the southern barbarian lands. However, since you dare to provoke the dignity of my Thousand Beasts sect, I'll teach you demon clans a painful lesson. Do you really think that you demon clans are still the demon clans of the ancient times? You're just a group of declining races. The middle-aged cultivator looked coldly at the southern barbarian lands and said disdainfully. It seemed that he looked down on the demon clan very much. Judging from his expression, he should be the leader of the thousands of cultivators this time. These cultivators were none other than the cultivators of the Thousand Beasts sect. Back then, when Chen Shi was transcending the tribulation, a group of cultivators from the Thousand Beasts sect came to take advantage of him. However, they didn't expect that the strength of the southern barbarian lands was far beyond their expectations. In an instant, they completely fell in the hands of Di Shitian. Although they died in the southern barbarian region and no other cultivators saw them, a great sect was still a great sect. When joining a sect, each disciple would leave behind a life tablet. This tablet contained a trace of the person's origin soul. Once the disciple died, they would be able to find the origin soul of the person. The life spirit tablet would also shatter. At the same time, the scene of the fall would be transmitted, so that the sect could find clues. In the future, they could avenge them. This was the terrifying part of a large sect. Generally, itinerant cultivators would not easily provoke the disciples of the sect. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 292. Almost all of Wang Feng's fellow disciples were at the core formation stage. Even in the Myriad Beast sect, such disciples were the mainstays of the younger generation. the future powerhouses of the sect, and the true core disciples. Compared to the inner and outer sect disciples, they were countless times more important. Their life spirit tablets were also placed in the sect to be looked after at all times. Once there was a change, a disciple would immediately report to the sect and record the scene of their last moments. Thus, the 10,000 Beasts sect had actually received news of Wang Feng's death several months ago when she died. Furthermore, they had obtained the final scene of her death. Saber light, a golden saber light. The terrifying aura emitted by the saber light could be clearly felt even through the recorded scene. The owner of the saber light was definitely powerful to an unimaginable realm. Feng, don't worry. No matter what, as your master, I will definitely avenge you. This time, I will flatten the southern barbarian land and kill all the demons in the southern barbarian land before capturing them back to the Myriad Beast Mountain. The middle-aged cultivator had his hands behind his back and his back was as straight as a pine tree. He raised his head and looked at the southern barbarian land. His eyes revealed traces of indifference as if he was looking at all things. His body naturally revealed a kind of transcendent and aloof temperament. It was a gaze that looked at ordinary creatures as if they were ants. Master, the southern barbarian land is about to arrive. Behind the middle-aged cultivator, a young cultivator in his 20s respectfully walked forward with a confident look on his face. This time, we've brought over 1,000 Foundation Establishment Inner Court disciples, 30 Core Formation Core disciples, and Master, you, a nascent soul cultivator. No matter how many demons there are in the southern barbarian lands, they won't be able to escape the fate of death this time. We will definitely be able to avenge eldest senior sister. His expression was full of flattery and he was intentionally or unintentionally flattering the middle-aged cultivator. In the ears of the middle-aged cultivator, it was naturally very pleasing to the ears. However, there wasn't much expression on his face. He only nodded slightly and said, Zhongqing, although it's as you said, the barbarians of the south do have some strength. They were able to silently bury your senior martial sister Feng in the mountain forest. Not a single core formation cultivator managed to escape. According to the steward disciples guarding the spirit tablet pavilion, Feng and the others' natal spirit tablets all shattered at the same time. It can be seen that the time between their deaths shouldn't be long. I'm afraid there's some powerful old demon hidden in a small place like the southern barbarian. From his words, it could be seen that he was not a completely arrogant person. There were some things that he always had a balance in his heart. None of the cultivators who could cultivate to the nascent soul stage were simple. So what if there's an old demon? Could it be stronger than Master? Master, you have the power to rank among the top 10 nascent soul cultivators in the cultivation world. Bai Zhongqing didn't hesitate to flatter him. There wasn't much difference between the middle-aged cultivator in front of him and what he said. In the cultivation world, Yang Xian was known as the Devil Beast. His guardian spirit beast was a newborn mantis that he stole from the nest of an iron-winged mantis after a near-death experience in the Return to the Void. Since the beginning of the core formation stage, he had devoted all of his efforts to nurture it. Now, the strength of the guardian spirit beast had reached a terrifying level. It was only by relying on it that he was able to rank among the top 10 nascent soul cultivators in the cultivation world. There's no need to say more. We'll arrive at the southern barbarian soon. At that time, you'll lead 300 disciples to guard the cloud wave ship and monitor the surroundings. Don't allow any demon to leave. The rest of you, follow me and meet the strong cultivators of the southern barbarian. Yang Xian began to order the disciples around. The cloud wave ship under their feet was very fast and its size was very large. It could accommodate thousands of cultivators without feeling crowded at all. As they spoke, they had already arrived in front of the southern barbarian. Southern barbarian monster, you dare to kill my beloved disciple. Do you think there's no one in my 1,000 beast sect? Today, I'll let you demon remnants pay for my disciple's life and offer it to his spirit in heaven. Yang Xian stood proudly at the bow of the ship. His words were transmitted to the sky above the southern barbarian under the infusion of true essence. At the same time, his body shook and the tyrannical pressure belonging to a nascent soul cultivator immediately swept out in all directions like a tide. Wherever it passed, it had the intention of crushing all creatures under it. Those ordinary birds and beasts naturally felt like Mount Tai was pressing down on them, and they were all pressed down. A mere 1,000 beasts sect, how powerful. You dare to boast about slaughtering my southern barbarian. At this moment, in the southern barbarian, there was also an aura with a light aura. It did not have Yang Xian's domineering deterrence, but there was an endless artistic conception. It was as if there were hundreds of flowers in the air, blooming all year round and full of vitality, blocking that tyrannical pressure. The two auras collided fiercely, but the invisible collision caused the clouds and mist above the southern barbarian to roll violently and change. The sound was like a thunderclap. Bullshit cultivator, how dare you come to my southern barbarian? I, Old Black, will make you stay here. Being affected by Yang Xian's aura, suddenly, in the southern barbarian, several tyrannical demon auras rose into the sky like smoke signals, echoing each other. The Black Ape King, the Red-Crowned Crane King, the Golden Lion King, the Underworld Raven King, and so on. Many demon beast kings were overlords. What's more, the demon clan and the human clan had long been in a situation of life and death. How could they have a good attitude? They all roared and howled. What you said is just empty words. The difference in cultivation is the difference between life and death. Disciples, follow me to meet the demon king of the southern barbarian. Yang Xian tested with his aura and easily found that in the southern barbarian, the only one who could really feel threatened was the owner of the light aura at the beginning. The aura was not inferior to him at all. The owner of the aura was definitely a demon king. Without thinking, he immediately led a group of disciples to rise into the air from the cloud-soaring ship. He took the lead and rushed directly to the center of the southern barbarian. At this time, in the myriad demon valley, the demons were all moving. Recently, there were many more spiritual beasts in the valley that had given birth to spirituality. In total, there were more than 6,000 spiritual beasts. At this time, all of them gathered on the grassland in the valley under the lead of Kai Hua and the others. Kai Hua, Ying Kong, and the other four met in an open space and gathered together. Kai Hua swept his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Everyone should have heard the shout of that cultivator just now." As expected by King Ji, this group of despicable cultivators really took advantage of King Ji's departure to the heavenly demon secret realm to launch a surprise attack. Everyone should still remember King Ji's instructions before he left. Ying Kong never dares to forget King Ji's words. A sharp light shot out of Ying Kong's eyes. There was a faint trace of determination. That's right. King Ji is very powerful. He had already expected that those cultivators would definitely come to attack the southern barbarian and had long been prepared. Now is the time for us to make a contribution. Bai Susu's eyes were full of inexplicable admiration. She called out in a delicate voice. Well, let's split up. Ying Kong, you're the fastest. You'll go to the 100 Flowers Valley to find Empress Chen Shi. Do as King Ji instructed. Now that Di Shitian was not in the valley, Kai Hua was in charge of the overall situation. He immediately began to give orders in a deep voice. Howl. Ying Kong did not hesitate at all. He flapped his wings and soared into the sky, letting out an eagle cry, and quickly flew to the 100 Flowers Valley. For a time, the southern barbarian was already in a precarious moment. Although the southern barbarian demon clan had long expected that there would be such a day sooner or later, it was the Thousands Beast sect who came. They sent thousands of disciples, and none of them was below the foundation establishment stage. Among them, there was Yang Xian, a nascent soul stage powerhouse. This force could be said to be terrifying when added together. This was a powerful force that wanted to wipe out the southern barbarian in one fell swoop. Under this situation, the southern barbarian demon clan was at a moment of life and death. However, the southern barbarian demon clan was a little too far away from Di Shitian. Being in the heavenly demon secret realm, not to mention not knowing, even if he knew, it was impossible to rush back in a short time. However, the moment Sakura stepped into the purple heavenly pillar, after his entire body entered, there wasn't any change. There wasn't even a trace of a sign, but the scenery in front of his eyes suddenly started to change. Looking at it, the place he was in was completely different. Hiss. Sakra's entire body suddenly shuddered. A bone-piercing chill actually seemed to ignore the valiance of his demon body, and mysteriously rushed into his body through the 108,000 pores of his entire body at high speed. For a time, he couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, but when he inhaled, a cold air poured into his throat. It was so cold that even the blood in his whole body was about to completely solidify. Whew! He exhaled heavily. The originally hot air, as soon as he exhaled, formed a little ice crystals in front of his eyes and fell under his feet, making a crisp sound. What kind of cold air is this? Even my monster body that is so strong that even those magic weapons and flying swords of slightly inferior quality can't hurt me, I still feel the bone-chilling cold. Even my blood is almost frozen. Where did such a terrible cold air come from? Di Shitian's expression changed. One had to know that with his current strength, even if he didn't circulate his monster essence, whether it was hot or cold, it couldn't cause any damage to him. But as soon as it appeared, there was a cold air desperately drilling into his body, and there was no way to resist it naturally. It was simply terrifying. Perhaps, the 9-yin cold wind above the 9 heavens was just like this. Under this cold air, Di Shitian had to circulate his monster essence, so that the monster essence kept flowing in his meridians to resist the terrible cold air outside of his body. Only then did he have the mind to begin to look at the surrounding scenery. With this look, he couldn't help but frown slightly. He saw that everywhere was a vast expanse of white, and above his head, there was goose feather-like snow floating down. Under his feet was a thick layer of ice, and on the ice, there was a layer of white snow that was 2 to 3 inches thick. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 293. Snowflakes, accompanied by a strong wind, blew toward him. Where is this place? Strange, I should remember something. Why do I feel like I've forgotten something? Di Shitian looked around at the boundless snowy land. It seemed to be a world of wind and snow. When he wanted to think carefully about where he was, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. The pain reached the bottom of his heart. He could not help but clench his fists and hit his head with all his strength. As he muttered to himself, he suddenly seemed to understand something. I remember now. I just entered the heavenly demon mystery land from the whirlpool on Misty Island. And I saw the purple thunder rain. Then, I suddenly came here. He muttered in a low voice as if he was recalling what had happened to him earlier. He glanced around and couldn't help but frown slightly as he asked curiously, where exactly is this place? Just a moment ago, I was still watching the scene of the purple lightning rain descending. How did I suddenly come to this icy cold place? Is this the heavenly demon mystery land? He seemed to have forgotten that he had gone through the test of the heart-questioning palace and faced the test of courage. His memory inexplicably stopped at the time when he saw the purple thunder rain. He had no recollection of what had happened after that. He did not remember seeing silver hair and lung wooching. He also did not remember anything about the heart-questioning palace or the heart-questioning road. It was as if he had no memory of the heart-questioning road. It was a blank. This situation was extremely strange. The scary thing was that Di Shitian did not know it at all. Strange, this should be the heavenly demon mystery land. But there is a vast expanse of whiteness everywhere. There is no heavenly yin-yang bridge mentioned by silver hair. There is not even half of the demon clan. Moreover, the cold air here is too abnormal. Even though I have condensed the inner elixir and have a strong body, I can't stand it. It seems that I have to find a way out as soon as possible and leave this place. Otherwise, I'm afraid there will be big trouble. Sakra scanned his surroundings. Although he had lost a part of his memory, his intellect was not damaged. Although he had already mobilized his demon primordial energy to resist the cold air, he was still unable to completely resist it. There were strands of cold air that drilled into his body and entered his body, causing the circulation of his blood and qi to slow down. He estimated that if he stayed here for too long, he would freeze to death in this strange place. Heavens! A demon who had condensed an inner core was known as the Demon King in the outside world. If he really froze to death here, it would be an unheard of story. Gulp. He took out the wine god's gourd and fiercely poured a few mouthfuls of spirit wine into his mouth. As he drank, he deliberately heated up the wine in the gourd. Once it entered his stomach, a fierce heat immediately rose up, warming his body quite a bit. However, the cold that had invaded his body was still unable to be dispelled. It was obvious that he had to leave this damned place as soon as possible. Sooner or later, he would be frozen into an ice sculpture in the snow. Swish. He lifted his feet and walked forward. Stepping on the white snow, he made a deep sound. He chose a direction and decisively moved forward. The wind and snow above his head were extremely strong, and the cold wind whistled incessantly. It sounded terrifying. Under such circumstances, Di Shitian did not dare to fly at all. This was too strange. If he flew, he would fall into the fierce wind, and the cold would be even stronger and harder to resist. The wind and snow were also very strong. Even if he was high in the sky, he would not be able to see the direction. That was a completely meaningless thing to do. Therefore, he did not think of anything else at all. Step by step in the snow, he steadily walked towards the southeast. Every time he walked, he would pour a few mouthfuls of spirit wine into his mouth. Although it could not dispel the cold, it could restore the demonic chi that was constantly being consumed in his body. He could only secretly hope that the snow would not be too heavy and that he could slowly walk out. Otherwise, he would really be buried here. Crack, crack. Just as Di Shitian braved the wind and snow and walked in the snow for about 2 hours, he still walked firmly in the direction that he had chosen. The more he walked, the more his heart sank. Suddenly, not far away, there was a sound of footsteps in the snow. He could not help but feel happy and hurried forward. He thought to himself, it seems that this snow is not completely devoid of life. I am not afraid of snow, but I am afraid of not being able to meet other living creatures. As long as there are living creatures, it means that this is definitely not a dangerous place. When I find them and ask for the way out, there will be a way out. The sound came from behind a snow hill in front of him. Di Shitian quickened his pace and walked a few steps forward. He climbed up the snow hill and looked forward. Hey! With this look, he could not help but let out a faint sound of surprise. He seemed very surprised. There was actually a large group of living creatures in front of him. Yes, they were not humans. If he really counted, it would not be wrong to say that they were demons. This was because he could clearly feel traces of demonic aura on these living creatures. Some were strong, and some were weak. But there was no doubt that it was demonic aura. This was something that could only be naturally emitted from the Yarrow race. It's the Tiger Clan and the Fox Clan. Di Shitian recognized the clans in front of him at a glance. Among them, the most intimate was naturally the Tiger Clan. After all, he was also a member of the Tiger Clan. It was very normal for their auras to be similar. Looking at the clans in front of him, there were 6 Tiger Clan members. Among them, 4 were adult Tiger Clan members. The demonic aura in their bodies was very strong. They were actually demons at the level of demonic beasts. They were each protecting cubs that had just been born not long ago. Looking at the situation of the 2 cubs, they were already frozen by the pervasive cold air around them. He was afraid that it wouldn't be long before death was right in front of him. Next to them was also a pink spiritual fox at the level of demonic beasts. She was not as gifted as Bai Hu and Su Tianxiang, who had the bloodline of the 9-tailed celestial fox. She was just an ordinary fox. It was not easy for her to become a demonic beast. She was holding a fox cub in her mouth and using her tail to wrap around another cub, hiding it in her abdomen. She was using her body heat to keep her cub warm. They were constantly moving forward, as if they were going to reach a certain place. They were migrating. Please stop for a moment. After sizing them up for a while, Di Shitian did not hesitate much and quickly leaped forward. He landed in front of the Tiger Clan couple and the fox mother and son and called out to them to stop in their tracks. At the same time, with a thought, a black light shield quickly burst out from his body and enveloped the surrounding area within a few meters. The Tiger Clan and the fox were both inside. It blocked the attack of the wind and snow outside. Along the way, he did not hide his aura. It was the aura of the king of beasts. Ah, this aura, you are also from the tiger clan. The wind and snow were blocked, and even more than half of the cold air was blocked. Only a little bit penetrated, but compared to before, who knew how much better it was? Intentionally or unintentionally, Di Shitian even emitted a wave of heat, making this light shield exceptionally warm. The tiger clan couple could clearly feel the aura of a king that was far more powerful than theirs. They could not help but cry out in surprise. Then, they naturally greeted him. The spiritual fox also came forward to greet him. They were all demonic beasts and could speak human language. Even if they could not, Di Shitian understood the language of beasts. There was no problem in conversing with them. "My lord, may I know why you stopped us?" Among the 4 demonic beast-level tigers, there was a white tiger. Obviously, it was the leader of this group of tigers. Therefore, it came forward and began to talk to Di Shitian. Sakura looked at the wind and snow outside and didn't beat around the bush. He directly asked, "Benwang suddenly appeared here and there's a vast expanse of wind and snow everywhere. I also don't know the way out, and now that I've bumped into you guys, I want to ask where exactly is this place and why there's such a terrifying cold air. Also, where can we leave this place?" These were all questions that he had in his heart. Now, he had asked them all at once. He only hoped that they could answer. "My lord." There was a bitter expression in the white tiger's eyes. It said, "Actually, we don't know what happened. In the past, this was a grassland, but we don't know why it suddenly became like this. It is snowing everywhere, and there is cold air. Many of our clansmen have been frozen to death." "You don't know?" Di Shitian suddenly had a bad feeling. He frowned and asked, "Then why did you migrate here? It seems that you are planning to go somewhere." "To tell you the truth, my lord. There is a valley here called Spring Breeze Valley. The valley is like spring all year round, and it is always warm. Suddenly, there was a change here, and many of our brothers rushed to Spring Breeze Valley. We were waiting for our children to be born, so we did not move together. Now, it is getting colder outside, and we have to hurry." "Spring Breeze Valley? Where is it then?" Di Shitian's eyes suddenly lit up, and he immediately asked. "My lord, as long as we keep going in the southeast direction, we will reach it in 3 days. My lord, if you want to go, just go in this direction. However, I am afraid that we will not be able to reach it." The white tiger looked sad. The intelligence of demonic beasts was not lower than that of humans. Naturally, they were very clear about their current situation. They had to migrate with their families in this bone-chilling weather. They could bear it, but their newborn cubs would not be able to withstand it. If this went on, they might not even survive a day, let alone 3 days. The only thing that kept him going was his belief. When the spirit fox heard this, it also looked sad, but it did not open its mouth to beg Di Shitian. This was because they all knew that in this cold air, they had to endure for 3 days. If Di Shitian went alone, he could definitely reach Spring Breeze Valley and survive. However, if he brought them along, no one would survive. When Di Shitian heard this, his eyes flashed, and his mind was suddenly filled with all kinds of emotions. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 294. After listening to the conversation between White Tiger and Spirit Fox, Indra's mind was filled with thousands of worries and various emotions. His eyes were fixed on the scene where White Tiger led the Tiger Clan and Spirit Fox mother and son snuggled up to each other for warmth. All around them was a vast expanse of white snow, and the cold air was getting heavier and heavier. White Tiger and the other adults were able to withstand it, but their children had long been frozen to the point that their bodies were beginning to stiffen. It wouldn't be long before their young lives were completely gone, and then it would be White Tiger and the others. Under such circumstances, continuing to walk would undoubtedly be suicidal. But according to them, the heavy snow had appeared suddenly and did not give them a chance to react. Only Spring Wind Valley's special situation could maintain the scenery of spring throughout the year. Staying where they were, undoubtedly, Death was a matter of time. But moving towards Spring Wind Valley, there was still hope in front of them. For this hope, even if there was only a 1 in a million chance, it was worth a try. That was why he was able to walk forward in this cold and bitter weather. It was a desperate move, and they were fighting for that slim chance of survival. Leave alone. Di Shitian frowned slightly and murmured in his heart. Indeed, once he knew the direction, it was not impossible for him to find Spring Wind Valley. But once he left, these people in front of him would be buried in the snow. His eyes fell on the 2 tiger cubs who were leaning close to their parents. They seemed to be hungry, and were looking for milk under their mother's body. Their silly look was really cute. Unconsciously, the image of when he was just born, when he was still living with his mother in the Tiger Hill Mountains, appeared in his mind. Although it was empty, it contained a thick warmth. Lying under his mother's body to drink milk, his mother took care of him. Every night, she would protect him and his brothers under her body to resist the cold. The image of his mother teaching him how to hunt prey. And so on. These images were deeply hidden in his mind. He could not help but be drawn out by the tiger in front of him. The scene of that year had been deeply imprinted in his mind. Since he was born, until he saw the image of his mother being captured by Wang Feng'er, he had never forgotten for a moment. He had never given up on his desire to save his mother. Even after knowing the strength of the Thousand Beasts sect, he did not change his mind. However, he buried this desire deep in the bottom of his heart, waiting for the day when he had the power to destroy 1,000 armies. He would go to the Thousand Beast sect and turn the Thousand Beast Mountain upside down. He left to save his mother. The scenes in front of him reminded him of the scene at Tiger Hill. Forget it. Even though I can be as ruthless as steel to my enemies and remain unfazed even if blood flows like rivers under the tiger's soul blade, if I were to watch my fellow clansmen and newborn children die in this snowy land, then I would be a man in vain. Di Shitian took a deep breath. As the saying goes, there are some things that a man should do and some things that he should not do. Di Shitian believed that his heart was tough and cold, but that was only towards his enemies. He was not heartless. He had cultivated the 7 emotions and 6 desires demonic veins, so how could he abandon the 7 emotions? On the contrary, the more emotional they were. All right, since you've shown me the way, I can't just abandon you here. Don't worry, even if it's because you've just helped me, I should still protect you. Come. Come to my floating cloud boat, let's go to Spring Wind Valley together. Can't go to the sky, can't it be used as a sleigh? Sakura looked at the 3 couples beside him. Forget about the 5 adult demon beasts, but there were 4 newborn demon beasts. If he followed the previous path, even if he had the ability to reach the heavens, he wouldn't be able to reach the Spring Breeze Valley. Previously, he had thought of using the floating cloud boat, but the wind and snow were too heavy. If he rushed up, he might be frozen directly. In front of him, he suddenly had an idea. The floating cloud boat originally looked like a boat. So, it couldn't fly in the sky. However, it could still be used as a sleigh if it was placed on the snow-covered ground. In fact, its speed would be several times faster than before. Its own defense could also help to resist the invasion of the surrounding cold air. It was much more convenient to carry others. With a wave of his hand, the floating cloud boat was released. It quickly turned into the size of an ordinary boat, enough to accommodate the tiger clan in front of him. Thank you very much, Your Majesty. As long as we can reach Spring Wind Valley, this subordinate will follow you in the future. When the white tiger heard this, he could not help but be overjoyed. When he saw Di Shitian take out the floating cloud boat, a ray of hope slowly emerged in his eyes. Without saying much, the 2 couples of the tiger clan, together with the spirit fox mother and son, boarded the floating cloud boat. Di Shitian stood at the bow of the boat. With a thought, he urged the floating cloud boat's own defense to form a shield, blocking the wind and snow outside. Up. Everything was ready. With a light shout from his mouth, the floating cloud boat immediately emitted bursts of white light. Following the snow, it quickly slid forward like a sleigh. For a moment, the speed was not slow at all. Bang! However, extreme joy begets sorrow. On this snowy ground, the threat was not only the cold air and the wind and snow that could not be resisted. Just as Di Shitian drove the floating cloud boat forward for less than 3 miles, the floating cloud boat's entire body violently shook. Ice and snow swirled in the air, and the entire spirit boat was lifted upside down on the spot. Bang, bang, bang! The ground in the snowy ground shook, and a huge ice bear covered in ice ferociously broke through the ice and rushed out from the ground. It was at least 100 feet in size. Its fists smashed the ground, and countless huge cracks appeared on the glacier. This was a monster completely formed from ice crystals. Its entire body was transparent, just like a stone monster. However, this monster was formed from ice crystals. After climbing out from the ground, it heavily hammered its chest violently, creating loud banging sounds. Its 2 blood-red eyes stared at the floating cloud boat that it had lifted. What kind of monster is this? Di Shitian had not sensed the slightest bit of its aura before. It was only when he was lifted that he sensed it. However, it was already too late. He was lifted more than 100 feet away. However, it did not cause any damage to him. With a bang sound, he turned his wrist and unsheathed the tiger soul, pointing it at his feet. Looking at the strange ice bear, he frowned slightly. He did not feel a trace of demon aura from the ice bear. It was clear that this was not a demon at all. Your Majesty, be careful. Your subordinate forgot to tell you that there are many ice soul monsters hidden in this snowy ground. They do not have any intelligence, but as long as you are in their territory, you will become their enemy. They will not rest until you are dead. Every one of them has strength that is not below this subordinate's. Moreover, the cold aura on their bodies is even more terrifying. If you fight with them, the cold aura will invade your body at any time. It cannot be dispelled. Who knows how many of these ice souls there will be along the way? Don't worry about us. Your Majesty, you should leave by yourself and let us block it. The white tiger said bitterly. Since this king said that he would bring you to Spring Wind Valley, then I will definitely do it. I, Di Shitian, am not a coward who would run away in the face of battle. Kill. Di Shitian fiercely raised his eyebrows. The purple king mark on his forehead violently pulsed. Looking at the huge ice bear, he spun the tiger soul in his hand, revealing its sharpness. Standing on the floating cloud ship, he slashed diagonally at the ice bear from afar. The tiger soul let out a series of tiger roars, and a golden light instantly burst out. It was dozens of feet long, as if it was an enlarged version of the tiger soul. Even the fishbone-like patterns on the blade could be seen clearly. The sharpness of the tiger soul actually cut off the wind and snow in an instant. It was as fast as lightning, not giving the ice bear any chance to react. With one slash, the ice bear was cut in half, bang. However, the strange thing was that after the ice bear was cut in half, it did not leave behind a corpse as expected. Instead, it exploded on the spot, turning into a solid cold aura that rushed toward Di Shitian as if it recognized him. Di Shitian frowned and wanted to cut it in half with his blade. However, this time, he did not get what he wanted. The cold aura was as if it was invisible, and was not affected in the slightest. In an instant, it rushed toward him. So cold. When the cold aura rushed into his body, it immediately drilled into his body through the countless pores on his body. Compared to the cold aura that entered his body before, it was like a small magus meeting a big magus. In almost an instant, the chi and blood in his body almost stopped and solidified. If not for the timely protection of his demonic essence, he would have frozen to death on the spot. His nose smelled the scent of death. Terrifying. The cold aura of this ice soul after its death can actually produce such a terrifying power on me. If all ice souls are like this, I can withstand 1 or 2 of them. However, if there are 10 or 100 of them, I will definitely be frozen into an ice cube. For a moment, a trace of fear emerged in Di Shitian's heart. He understood how terrifying the ice soul was. Go. Only 1 or 2 thoughts appeared in Di Shitian's mind. Without hesitation, he shouted and urged the floating cloud ship to glide forward. So what if there was an ice soul in front of them? Along the way, White Tiger tried to persuade Di Shitian several times to let them go. However, he did not agree. This was not a show of strength, but a kind of responsibility or something else. Di Shitian did not think of abandoning White Tiger and the others at all. No matter who it was, in the bottom of his heart, there were still some things that needed to be persisted in. All the way forward, they encountered ice souls several times. It was easy to kill them, but the cold aura that they turned into after their deaths rushed into Di Shitian's body. It almost froze his blood and chi and blood. The terrible coldness was raging in his body again and again. Even his determined face turned pale. Perhaps, in the next moment, he would be frozen to death by the cold aura. He would fall in this land of ice and snow. He did not know how far he had walked and how many ice souls he had killed. Even the demonic essence in his body was frozen. His mind began to blur. However, with the support of the belief in his heart, he kept walking forward. Bang! 2 days later, Di Shitian appeared in front of a valley with White Tiger and the others. He had completely lost consciousness. His body was covered with thick ice crystals. At last, he looked up and saw the spring-like scene of the valley. His entire body was like a piece of wood, falling into the ice and snow with a loud crash. His consciousness was completely lost. Just as he fell, the ice and snow beneath his body began to slowly melt. At the beginning of the month, if you have a guaranteed monthly ticket, please help me out. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 295. Putting aside Sakra's encounter in the Heavenly Demon Secret Realm, the originally peaceful southern barbarian lands, under the sudden threat of the Thousand Beasts sect, could be said to be in a state of turmoil. Yang Xian had learned of Chen Shi's whereabouts with a simple probe. Yang Xian immediately led more than 700 elite disciples toward Centauria Valley. In the valley, Chen Shi stood quietly among the countless beautiful flowers. She held a beautiful flower basket in her hand. In the flower basket, there were 9 flowers that were shining with divine light. One of them was golden in color, and there were golden lightning flashing on its surface from time to time. This was a golden 7th lightning flower. The other 8 flowers were all 7-colored, and the light was flowing around them. They were very beautiful. They seemed to contain a boundless sense of beauty. These 8 flowers were condensed from the 100-flower essence in the valley and the wonders of the flower basket. They were the 100 mirage illusory flowers. They were all weapons that could be used to attack. The flower basket was a treasure that Chen Shi had inherited from the goddess of 100 flowers. It had the miraculous power to refine all kinds of energy in the world. Back then, it had been able to absorb the heptagold thunderflower and condense it into the heptagold thunderflower. It definitely contained immeasurable power. The 100-flower essence in the valley was endless. Naturally, it could use the flower basket's power to condense the 100-flower essence into the 100 mirage illusory flowers. There were a total of 9 strange flowers, each of which contained immeasurable power. Big sister, what should we do now? That stinking cultivator's aura was so powerful that I felt like I couldn't breathe. Can we beat them? The worst thing is that Big Brother Di and Big Sister Medusa aren't here. Otherwise, we'd be able to beat the crap out of him. How despicable. They took advantage of our weakness to come knocking. The vermilion bird flew back and forth anxiously beside Chen Shi. It flew up and down and could not stop for a moment. It was also chirping non-stop. Zhu, the ones who came this time are experts from the cultivation world. Hurry up and leave. Go hide in the Myriad Demon Valley for a while. Chen Shi said with a solemn expression. When she mentioned the Myriad Demon Valley, she looked hesitant. No, elder sister, Zhu won't leave. Zhu is also very powerful. She can stay and help elder sister. The vermilion bird didn't even think about it. It shook its head and shouted, Stinky Crow and the others will definitely come. At that time, we won't be afraid of those dogs-hit cultivators. Its attitude was extremely firm. When Chen Shi heard this, he silently looked at the vermilion bird for a while before he said, All right, you go to the side first. The expert has arrived. Ha. A demon monarch is indeed a demon monarch. Your senses are truly formidable. You've already sensed me the moment I arrived outside the valley. In mid-air, a stream of light broke through the air and appeared in the sky above the valley. With his hands behind his back, he stepped into the void, step by step as if he was taking a stroll. His eyebrows were full of arrogance as he looked at Chen-shi condescendingly. I really didn't expect that a demon monarch would appear in the remote southern barbarian lands today when the demon clan is in decline. But, even a demon monarch will fall. Yang Xian's aura was awe-inspiring. As he spoke, his aura climbed steadily. He wanted to suppress Chen-shi in terms of aura. However, how could Chen-shi let him do as he wished? He said with a calm and elegant face, "What great prestige, what great killing intent. However, you're just a mere nascent soul cultivator. What qualifications do you have to say that you want to destroy my southern barbarian lands? Do you think you're one of those tribulation stage experts of the human clan?" There was an undisguised contempt in his words. It was a kind of disdain. I'm afraid you won't be able to see whether I can or can't." A cold light flashed in Yang Xian's eyes. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a terrifying blazing chi was emitted in front of him. Roar! A fire dragon that was hundreds of feet long and completely covered in countless flames appeared out of thin air. It immediately let out a roar from its mouth. A strong dragon's power pressed down from mid-air. The flames emitted from the fire dragon's body caused the temperature in the air to continue to rise. The surrounding flowers and plants seemed to be on the verge of self-immolation. Flame dragon burns the heavens. This was a powerful offensive magic technique. Once it was released, even nascent soul cultivators would find it difficult to face it head-on. It was said that once the flame dragon was released, it would leave 100 li of land scarlet. When it was used, it was extremely terrifying. As a nascent soul cultivator, Yang Xian's eyes were quite sharp. With just a glance, he saw the layout of the valley and immediately figured out that Chen-shi's main body should be inclined towards the wood element. His fire could burn forests. He was the bane of wood element. It had to be said that there was a frightening gap between nascent soul cultivators and core formation cultivators. It would be easy for them to destroy a mountain with a wave of their hand. The flame dragon stretched and let out a dragon roar. Under Yang Xian's control, it bared its fangs and brandished its claws at Chen-shi. Child's play. When Chen-shi saw this, his expression didn't change in the slightest. He only lightly spat out a sentence and lightly tossed the flower basket in his hand. It flew over his head and spun around, emitting a rainbow-colored light that landed on the flame dragon's body. Immediately, an inconceivable scene appeared. When the rainbow-colored light landed on the originally ferocious and terrifying flame dragon, the flames around its body strangely retracted. As if it had met its nemesis, it became as docile as a house cat. It quickly shrank and mysteriously fell into the flower basket. When the flower basket landed in Chen-shi's hands, the rainbow-colored light in the basket continuously changed. It formed a cloud of rainbow-colored fog. Dragon roars could be heard from the basket. In the blink of an eye, the rainbow-colored light disappeared and the flowers in the basket turned into 10. One of them was completely fiery red with a flame dragon coiling around its stem. The appearance of the flower was like a burning flame. The light that flashed from time to time revealed the domineering power contained within the flower. What kind of magic treasure is this? It can actually absorb spells. Yang Xian's expression changed. His eyes stared straight at the flower basket in Chen-shi's hand with a trace of greed. A magic treasure that could absorb spells was almost always a rare treasure. There was a saying that spilled water couldn't be taken back. It was the same for spells. Once cast and then taken back, it wasn't so simple. The required cultivation was at least 1 or 2 levels higher than the spellcaster. However, this flower basket could do that. Obviously, it was definitely a rare treasure that didn't appear in the world. Thinking about it, with this flower basket, almost most spells wouldn't have the slightest effect on it. How powerful was that? Flower pinching finger. Chen-shi didn't care about what he thought. After absorbing the spell and turning it into a flame dragon, he gently plucked a sword-shaped petal from the 7th gold thunder flower in the flower basket. He held it between his slender fingers and used the flower pinching finger. Immediately, the petal flew out. With a light shake, it divided into two, two into three, and three into endless petals. They swept toward young Xian in an overwhelming manner. These petals were in the shape of sharp swords. When they swept over, it was like a terrifying rain of swords. The meaning of the flower pinching finger was that its vitality was endless. As long as the petal itself was not broken, this endless flower pinching finger would be endless. They continued to attack him relentlessly. This finger was also a unique skill that made the Fairy of 100 Flowers famous back then. In ancient times, there were almost countless powerhouses who fell under this move. Each of them was an overlord who ruled over a region. Unfortunately, Chen Shi's current cultivation was still low. When he used it, he could only display 1/10,000th of its power. Demon subduing umbrella. When young Xian saw it, although he was surprised, he had expected it in his heart. This time, it might not be as smooth as he had imagined. He didn't expect that a monster king in such a small place like the southern barbarian lands would have such a powerful treasure on him. Not to mention, his attack methods were so powerful. With a finger, petals that blotted out the sky and covered the earth were everywhere in front of him. If he was slightly careless, it wasn't difficult for him to know that he would definitely end up being pierced by 10,000 swords. Without thinking, he shouted softly. His body flashed, and a pitch-black ancient umbrella suddenly flew above his head. Voila! The ancient umbrella opened, and for a moment, it spun above his head, emitting thousands of demon-subduing lights. It formed a black barrier around him, protecting young Xian's body. Those petals bombarded over like lightning, only landing on the ancient umbrella, making crackling sounds. It sounded very terrifying. However, there were only traces of black light that appeared on the umbrella. They were like ripples. It didn't suffer much damage. Instead, it was the gang metal divine thunder contained in the petals that bombarded the ancient umbrella, causing it to shake violently. It was as if it would fall at any moment. The scene was truly terrifying. Iron-winged mantis. Out. Young Xian was experienced after all. After just a few exchanges, he had already tested that the Chen Shi in front of him was definitely a great enemy. Immediately, he no longer held back and cast a spiritual art. Bang! A terrifying earthquake suddenly came from underground in the 100 Flowers Valley. The ground cracked open, and a huge mantis at least 40 to 50 feet tall crawled out of the ground. This mantis was truly terrifying. It had a grey carapace that looked like copper and iron, and its two front limbs were two huge sickles. It was pitch black, and there was a sinister cold light on it. The cold air was oppressive, and it was extremely terrifying. His entire body emitted a thick smell of blood that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Hiss! As soon as the mantis appeared, its two sickles slashed at Chen Shi without hesitation. Its speed was immeasurable, even faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, it appeared above Chen Shi's head. The cold blade could be clearly felt. It was difficult to meet and difficult to part. The east wind is weak, and the flowers are gone. Chen Shi's feet moved slightly, and he chanted softly. His hand formed a mysterious seal. Immediately, a gust of east wind blew out of the ground among the countless flowers in the valley. The petals of the countless flowers withered, and they flew into the air. In the blink of an eye, it filled the entire valley. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 296. There were all kinds of strange flowers everywhere in the 100 Flowers Valley. Due to the special characteristics of the valley, they were all in full bloom. Now, the ground was swept up by a gust of wind. It didn't hurt the roots, but the beautiful flowers were blown away. Different petals fluttered in the wind. They flew up with the cool breeze, looking like butterflies in the valley. The scene was like a dream. Chen Shi stood in the middle of it, like a beautiful flower fairy. He exuded an amazing charm that made people subconsciously sink into him. However, although the petals dancing in the sky were beautiful, they were also beautiful. Amidst this beauty, there was a kind of lingering resentment of it was difficult to meet and difficult to part. It formed a sad but beautiful scene, and there was also a lonely aura of withering flowers when the east wind came. This was a metaphor for the withering of life. The beauty was sad, and the wind was the wind of death. All of a sudden, the sky full of petals formed a sea of flowers in mid-air. They slowly swept towards the iron-winged mantis in front of him, towards Yang Xian who was in a stalemate with the flower-pinching finger, and towards the hundreds of thousand beast sect disciples who had already arrived in the valley. Hiss! The iron-winged mantis was right in front of Chen Shi. Chen Shi stepped aside and very naturally avoided its sudden attack. Before the iron-winged mantis could attack again, the sea of flowers in the sky had already swept over. The scene was very spectacular. The iron-winged mantis was a guardian spiritual beast that Yang Xian had painstakingly cultivated. Like his life weapon, it would follow him for life. Once its master died, the guardian spiritual beast would most likely die with him. Under Yang Xian's training, its intelligence was definitely not low. At the same time, from the ruthless and evil aura it exuded, one could feel that this mantis's strength was not below that of a nascent soul cultivator. Moreover, its body was covered in a hard shell and its two front limbs were no different from two sharp sickles. Yang Xian and the iron-winged mantis were equivalent to two nascent soul cultivators. If they fought, they would naturally have a great advantage. But now, in front of this sea of flowers, it was like a broken boat in a vast ocean. The iron-winged mantis instinctively felt the threat of the sea of flowers in front of it. It waved its two pitch-black scythes like lightning, and countless blade chi burst out crazily in all directions. It fell on the flowers and trees, and immediately erupted with a terrifying power, cutting a terrible knife mark. However, the true target of the scythe was the sea of flowers in front of Xiao Chen. Saber chi surged out and tore through the air, giving off terrifying sonic booms. The seemingly solid black saber light swept wildly for several hundred meters in front of Xiao Chen. Countless petals were covered under the sickle. However, strangely, when those flower petals were sliced by the sickle, it was as if those flower petals were illusory, like a mirage. The scythe and blade chi easily passed through the petals, but the petals were not damaged at all. Countless petals swept past and came before the mantis. It directly pierced through the body of the mantis. Strangely enough, the flower petals couldn't be destroyed by the scythe. Instead, the moment the flower petals entered the mantis's body, they strangely disappeared, as though they had fused with its body. Hiss! However, as soon as the flower petals entered the mantis's body, its blood-red eyes suddenly showed traces of pain and fear, and it opened its mouth to let out a shrill cry. Monster, what kind of sorcery is this? It can actually reduce spiritual essence and consume cultivation. Yang Xian and the iron-winged mantis's minds were connected. When the mantis roared, he already knew the horror of the sea of flowers. Every petal that entered Xiao Chen's body not only brought great pain to the mantis, but also the spiritual essence and cultivation in its body quickly disappeared in an instant. It didn't really disappear, but just consumed its spiritual essence. Almost in the blink of an eye, the ferocious iron-winged mantis suddenly became an empty shell. In fact, the power in its body had been completely consumed in just a few breaths. If it wanted to recover, it couldn't be done in a moment. Yang Xian's face also changed in an instant. He never thought that a small monster king in the remote southern barbarian lands would be so difficult to deal with. First, it was the flower-pinching finger that forced him to passively defend. Then, it was the strange 100 flowers fade that turned him into a soft-footed shrimp. If these petals had landed on him, Yang Xian had no doubt that he would have been completely drained of his vital essence on the spot. His vital essence would vanish, and he would no longer have the ability to retaliate and be at the mercy of Chenxi. Terrifying. The 100 flowers fade made Yang Xian feel a sense of fear in his heart. However, Yang Xian was a nascent soul cultivator after all. His eyes shone and his expression was full of caution. He said, "Fortunately, Senior Brother Sect Leader told me to bring the demon-subduing pagoda with me before we set off. Otherwise, I really would have failed miserably today." Looking at the sea of flowers that filled the sky, a light flashed in his hand. Golden light shot out in all directions, bursting forth with thousands of rays of light. For a moment, it was like the sun that had just risen in the morning. Wherever the golden light went, the world was warm. It didn't seem to be very powerful, but it blocked the flower-pinching finger and the sea of flowers that filled the sky at the same time. No matter how powerful the countless petals were, they couldn't penetrate the seemingly gentle golden light. Within the golden light, one could clearly see Yang Xian stretch out his left hand with a cautious expression. In his hand was a simple and unadorned 9-layered pagoda. The pagoda was completely golden, as if it were forged from pure gold. Countless mysterious runes spun on its surface like flowing water. The pagoda seemed to contain an inconceivable power. At the very top of the pagoda was a mysterious yellow hexagonal crystal. Wisps of terrifying aura occasionally reverberated within the crystal. If one looked closely, one could vaguely see countless demon figures flickering within the crystal. In the blink of an eye, there were countless figures. However, none of the demon figures were the same. Demons subduing pagoda, protect the golden light and prevent all evil from penetrating. Yang Xian quickly formed a mysterious seal with his hand and struck the pagoda. Immediately, the pagoda shook violently. Boundless golden light shone on the boundless sea of flowers, rapidly melting the countless petals one by one. Don't panic, Empress. I, Old Black, am here. The ground trembled violently as if there was an earthquake, and the rumbling sounds were endless. The Black Ape King's tall body immediately appeared outside the valley. Seeing the hundreds of cultivators flying in the air in the valley, its eyes widened in anger. With a loud roar, its body emitted a strong demonic aura as it stretched out its ape claws. Boom! 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 Black light flickered on the ape claws, and they suddenly became incomparably huge, like the Buddha's palm. With a backhand turn, the claw slammed down. The air under the claw shook violently, and there was a vague tendency to be destroyed. Wah! Amidst the hoarse and unpleasant cries of countless crows, the Underworld Raven King had already led a large flock of underworld ravens to pounce over. For a moment, the rest of the demon kings of the southern barbarian, and even ordinary demon beasts and demons, had already rushed over from all directions. Waves of demonic aura gathered together, forming a huge demon cloud in the sky above the 100-flower valley. The roar shook the mountain forest. The southern barbarian demon tribe and the 1,000-beast sect were like two sharp needles against each other. An earth-shattering battle was about to unfold before their eyes. It was a continuation of the endless killing between humans and demons for countless years. Am I dead again? On a high platform that was exactly the same as before, Di Shitian opened his eyes in a daze. He glanced around and muttered to himself. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and say, "Pa, what am I saying? I almost made myself go insane. This Wenshin Road is really not something that ordinary people can walk on." Standing on the high platform, he looked at the surrounding scenery. There were 2 divine pillars on the platform, and in the middle of the divine pillars, there was also a stone tablet standing up. The moment he appeared, a purple light rushed into his mind from the tablet. All of a sudden, he understood everything. All the previous experiences appeared in his mind one by one. First, you sealed my memory, then you put me in front of the cliff of life and death. Wenshin Road, if I was in there and had doubts about my choice, I'm afraid I wouldn't be here. Looking around, he was the only one on this high platform. Silver Hair and the others didn't appear. He didn't know whether they had left or were still taking the test in the Wenshin Palace. Speaking of which, Di Shitian also had a trace of fear in his heart. He really didn't expect that the test of the Wenshin Road, every step was not a fluke. Every step forward would put the recipient in a life and death situation, and use life and death to interrogate one's heart. Only in the face of life and death could one's choice be from the heart, from the heart. There were no other impurities in it. This method made him feel as if he was looking up at a lofty mountain, even though he had never met the Sky Demon before. Only when he came back to his senses did he know what he had experienced and what kind of test he had experienced. It turned out that the second Wenshin Palace tested responsibility and universal love. To be able to bear responsibility, One would have the qualifications to be a true king and a true leader. To have universal love, one would consider for one's subordinates and love them. One would work hard for their survival. The Sky Demon was not just a simple test. It was choosing a king for the Sky Demon race. There are a total of 5 Wenshin palaces in the Wenshin Road. I have already passed 2, and there are 3 more ahead. I want to see what kind of test is waiting for me. Di Shitian's expression was firm, and his eyes didn't waver in the slightest. He looked around, took out the wine god's gourd, and drank a few mouthfuls of spirit wine. There were 2 divine pillars, one black and one purple. He didn't even look at the black one. He stared directly at the purple divine pillar, swallowed the wine in his mouth, flung his sleeves, and stepped into the purple divine pillar in a carefree manner. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 297. As for the Wenshin Road, although he had been on the verge of death twice, when he came out, Sakura could feel that his mind seemed to have been cleansed in an instant. It had completely transformed, as if it had been sublimated once, becoming smooth and bright. When he observed the things in the outside world, he could clearly see many things that were completely different from before. Even every inch of his flesh and blood and every strand of demonic chi in his body could be operated more freely. The difference could not be clearly explained in a few words. However, Sakura could feel that if he could really pass all the tests and walk the entire Wenshin Road, then from then on, there would be no inner demons that could confuse him, and no external evil that could invade his body. Because his heart was clear, he could clearly recognize himself, and he was himself. How could the inner demons erode him? What's more, he instinctively realized that at that time, his mind might be able to withstand the test of the power of desire and truly integrate the power of desire in the Black Lotus with the demonic spirit to form a new kind of power, a powerful power that he could control. Regardless of the reason, Di Shitian had to take the path of reflection. There was no reason to give up. In the Heavenly Demon Mystery Realm, it could be said that all kinds of things were happening, and it was divided into 2 worlds. The first was for the survival of the demon clan in the Mystery Realm, while the second was for the demon clan and human cultivators to test. Di Shitian walked the path of reflection firmly. However, the Heartseeker path was not a path that just anyone from the demon race would be able to traverse. In the first test, the test of courage, countless demon clan members were eliminated, and only a few passed. It could be said that every one of them was a 1 in a million demon clan member, and their future achievements were bright. However, there was a large number of those who did not pass. Naturally, the heavenly demons could not kill all of these demon clan members at once. After all, they were demon clan members. Even if they did not pass, they would not be killed. They would just be teleported to another place. In the air, there were 2 floating islands. The distance between the 2 islands wasn't too far apart. However, there was an ancient bridge in the middle of the 2 islands, blocking the path between the 2 islands. The 2 islands were separated from each other. With the ancient bridge in the middle, the creatures on the 2 islands couldn't reach the other side. It was as if there was an invisible barrier separating them. At this moment, on the island to the right, there were many monsters with their true forms gathered together. Of course, there were also monsters that appeared in their true forms. There were more than 100,000 of them. They began to discuss heatedly with each other. If one were to take a closer look, one would discover that the demon clans on the island were the same demon clans that had entered the Heavenly Demon Mystery Zone from Misty Wave Island. From the looks of it, these demons did not pass the test. After failing, they were directly transported to this island. I'm ashamed. It seems that this seat's heart has never been acknowledged by Lord Sky Demon. Even when he died, he didn't understand what the second heart-questioning palace was testing. On the edge of the island, the silver-haired man said with a self-deprecating expression as he gulped down a few mouthfuls of spirit wine. However, the disappointment on his face only lasted for a moment before it disappeared. It could be seen that his temperament was extremely carefree. He was rarely disturbed by external matters. In front of him, Yu was beside him. The Blood Dragon King, the Golden-Winged Bat King, Lung Wuching, and the others were all gathered together in this corner. From the looks of it, they were all thrown out of the heart-questioning palace. Di Shitian hasn't come out yet. The Blood Dragon King's eyes flickered, and the evil aura on his face disappeared. He said, he was the first to enter, and we all followed behind him. Now, we came out first, but there's still no trace of him. From the looks of it, he has most likely passed the second test. Impressive, really impressive. Old Meng, only now do I realize that your judgment is really impressive. After saying that, there was a trace of indescribable solemnity in his expression. It's hard to say. Back then, when I was on Misty Wave Island, I just felt that I couldn't see through Brother Di. From the looks of it, he might have come out by chance. He might have really finished the heart-questioning path, the silver-haired man said indifferently, but his gaze landed on the ancient bridge in the distance. There was a stone tablet on the ancient bridge that stood tall. On the stone tablet, there were 5 ancient seals, heaven-connecting yin-yang bridge. This bridge was the ancient bridge full of slaughter that the silver-haired man had mentioned before. Now, the ancient bridge seemed to be independent of all living beings, isolating the 2 islands. No living beings could set foot on it. Heaven-connecting yin-yang bridge. Once you step on the bridge, life and death are boundless. When it opens, it will be the beginning of the slaughter. However, before that, I don't know how many human cultivators will be left after going through a mountain of swords and a sea of flames, the silver-haired man muttered to himself and glanced at the opposite island. The opposite island was barren, and there was not a single person on it. Of these 2 islands, one accommodated demons and the other accommodated human cultivators. When the ancient bridge released the restriction, human cultivators and demons would step on the ancient bridge at the same time. A slaughter would naturally begin. That would probably be the time when the sky would be dyed red with blood. Death gaze. In the sky above the 100-Flower Valley, a large black mass of underworld ravens covered the sky and covered the earth. Every one of them was overflowing with a thick aura of death. Their eyes were as cold and indifferent as usual. They looked at any living being as if they were looking at an object without any life. Its innate ability, death gaze. As long as it was an adult underworld raven, it could use it. However, there was a limit to it every day. Being able to use it once a day was already the limit. Only the underworld Raven King could use it at will. When they arrived at the 100-Flower Valley, the underworld Raven King looked at the hundreds of cultivators and didn't hesitate in the slightest. He let out a hoarse cry as he stared ahead, and an invisible energy of death burst out from his eyes. It stared at a core formation cultivator. That cultivator could not even resist. He only felt a huge pain in his mind and his consciousness immediately began to blur. His soul collapsed under the death gaze. His body became cold, and there was not a trace of it falling down. He had already fallen. There were tens of thousands of underworld ravens following behind him. Under the command of the underworld Raven King, they all stared coldly at the hundreds of cultivators. Ah, it hurts. Martial Uncle, save us. This is the underworld raven's death gaze. There are so many underworld ravens. We're finished. For a moment, the group of cultivators covered their heads and let out blood-curdling screams. Many cultivators closed their eyes and fell to the ground without a sound. One underworld raven was not scary. What was scary was hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of underworld ravens. That was the real terror. With tens of thousands of underworld ravens using the death gaze together, even a cultivator who was going through the tribulation would have to run. One had to know that the power of the death gaze could be stacked on top of each other. One only needed to imagine the scene slightly to understand how terrifying it was. No matter how powerful the underworld ravens are, they can forget about showing off their power against the demon-subduing pagoda in my hands. The pagoda's divine radiance protects them. When Yang Xian saw the overwhelming number of underworld ravens appear, his face instantly turned pitch black and rather ugly. Before he reached the southern wilderness, to be honest, he did not take it seriously at all. However, once he entered the southern wilderness, one accident after another continuously appeared before his eyes. If it were not for the demon-subduing pagoda in his hands, he would have already prepared to run away. As he shouted softly, the pagoda in his hand trembled. Golden light burst forth, and the light expanded greatly, covering all the disciples behind him under the divine radiance. On the spot, he could see that outside the golden light, there were invisible ripples constantly fluctuating. It was the terrifying power of the death gaze. It was originally invisible and formless, but at this moment, it was forcefully blocked outside the golden light. The power of this demon-subduing pagoda could be said to have reached an unbelievable level. It was definitely not as simple as a magic treasure, but an existence that surpassed magic treasures. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a spirit treasure. Its power was so strong that it could be said to be rare. Today, I will take you all in, you monsters. When Yang Xian saw that the pagoda really had infinite power, confidence spontaneously rose in his heart. A trace of arrogance appeared on his face again, and his eyes burst out with a threatening light. Looking around, he saw that almost all the demons in the southern wilderness had swarmed over from all directions. They gathered around and vaguely surrounded them in the middle. Demon-subduing pagoda, demon-subduing. Yang Xian's face was solemn. He shouted softly with his hand, and another seal was cast into the pagoda. Buzz! The pagoda flew into the air. It appeared above his head and began to spin. At the bottom of the pagoda, a pitch-black hole suddenly appeared out of thin air. It formed a vortex. Endless devouring power was crazily emitted from the pagoda. In the blink of an eye, it swept in all directions. Where it covered, all the creatures felt that there was suddenly an incomparably powerful binding force on their bodies, pulling their bodies closer and closer to the pagoda. They were completely helpless. The strange thing was that the devouring power emitted by the pagoda had no effect on cultivators like Yang Xian, and it did not affect the plants at all. The only thing that could be felt was the demons in the southern wilderness that gathered around. The demons in the demon beast realm could still withstand it, but some demons could not control their bodies at all. Their bodies were covered by the terrifying devouring power and were suddenly sucked into the air. They flew towards the pagoda. The closer they got to the pagoda, the smaller their bodies became. In the blink of an eye, they were swallowed by the vortex that cracked under the pagoda. Only shrill cries could be heard echoing in the air. Howl! When Chen Shi saw it, her expression changed. Just as she was about to move, a high-pitched eagle cry suddenly came from the sky. Looking up, she saw a huge vulture hovering above. Empress Chen Shi, I am Eagle Kong from the Myriad Demon Valley. Before the king left, he had guessed that the human cultivators would kill us in the southern wilderness, so he was already prepared. Please lead the other demon brothers to the Myriad Demon Valley. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 298. In the valley, the king has already left behind a way to deal with them. Empress, brothers from the monster race, quickly follow me. Ying Kong looked at the demon-subduing pagoda in the air. From time to time, there would be demons who couldn't resist the suction force from the pagoda being sucked into the pagoda. Furthermore, the suction force was getting stronger and stronger as time passed. It was as if a terrifying whirlwind had swept up on the ground. Yang Xian was under the pagoda. His expression was solemn as he focused all his attention on the pagoda. It was obvious that the pagoda relied on his vital essence to unleash such power. However, it also restrained all his power. He couldn't do anything else. It seemed that the power of the pagoda wasn't limited to what he saw. Even he could only unleash a small portion of the pagoda's power. After all, although the monstrous beasts' bodies were constantly being pulled toward the pagoda, they did not completely lose their ability to resist. Only the monstrous beasts were sucked into the pagoda by the power of the pagoda. However, as time passed, even beast-level demons would find it hard to resist. The pagoda shone with golden light. Ordinary attacks couldn't break through the divine light of the pagoda at all. If this continued, most of the demons in the surroundings would be sucked into the pagoda sooner or later. Ying Kong didn't dare to approach and could only shout from afar. What? Brother Di already has a way to deal with these cultivators? But what about the brothers sucked into the pagoda? The Black Ape King was like a pillar supporting the heavens. Relying on his powerful strength, his two thick legs were firmly nailed to the ground, blocking the strong power that appeared on his body. He stretched out his two hands and grabbed a few demons who were flying into the air and were about to be sucked into the pagoda. Hearing that Di Shitian had a way, a glimmer of light appeared in his eyes. However, he glanced at the pagoda in the air. At this moment, the pagoda had already sucked in no less than 100 demons. All of them were beast-level demons. Being sucked into the pagoda, one could imagine that they wouldn't have a good ending. That's right. The pagoda in his hand is too powerful. Our attacks can't hurt him. The Golden Lion King's 3 heads swayed left and right, its eyes emitting traces of dignified light. The eyelashes of the 2 heads that were originally closed slightly trembled, faintly showing signs of opening. Sister Shi, we can't go on like this. Why don't we go to Di Shitian's myriad demon valley first and then decide what to do? Otherwise, even if we can hold on, the other demon clan brothers will probably be sucked into that pagoda. The red-crowned crane king circled high up in the sky. Countless snow-white and sharp feathers flew towards the pagoda like arrows. However, the demon-subduing pagoda was the 10,000 Beast sect's most important treasure. Its wonders were boundless. Within the golden light, it slightly trembled, but did not show any signs of collapsing. Strong. One had to admit that this pagoda was an immeasurable treasure. If its power was truly unleashed, it would probably shock the heavens and make the gods weep. As soon as the pagoda appeared, the entire situation was reversed in an instant, causing the southern barbarian demons to be in a crisis. If there was no other way, they could only start to fight desperately. However, the arrival of the eagle brought a possible way to defeat the enemy, which also gave the Black Ape King and the others another choice. But now, the one in charge here was undoubtedly Chen Shi. If Chen Shi didn't leave, they couldn't leave alone. Whether they left or stayed, it was all up to Chen Shi. A complicated look flashed across Chen Shi's eyes for a moment. Then, he glanced at the golden pagoda, took a deep breath, and opened his red lips. Let's go to the 10,000 Demon Valley. As soon as he said that, Chen Shi's hands didn't stop moving. He quickly formed a mysterious hand seal and the sea of petals rushed towards the pagoda like a tide. This time, countless petals exploded. Every time a petal exploded, it would release a terrifying force that was equivalent to the attack of a core formation cultivator. In the blink of an eye, the force of the petals stacked together and the violent force blocked the pagoda's suction force. For a moment, all the demon clans in the valley felt their bodies lighten at the same time. This resistance was only temporary. Chen Shi's expression turned serious. He looked at Ying Kong and said, "You lead the way in front and rush to the 10,000 Demon Valley as fast as possible. Goddess, brothers of the demon clan, please follow behind Ying Kong. Don't worry, as long as we reach the 10,000 Demon Valley, this group of cultivators can't do anything to us." Seeing that Chen Shi agreed, Ying Kong flapped his wings. His body was like a sharp arrow leaving the bow. He drew a golden light in the air and quickly rushed straight to the location of the myriad Demon Valley. Let's go. At this moment, none of the demon clan hesitated. They all rode on the demon wind and followed behind Ying Kong, leaving quickly. Chen Shi stayed behind. He stared at Yang Xian and the others with a calm expression. "You want to leave?" Yang Xian's face was full of arrogance. He looked at the demon clan that rose into the air with disdain and said coldly, "Outside the southern wilderness, there are disciples of the 10,000 Beasts sect guarding. Let's see where you can escape to. No matter how much useless work you do, you still can't escape from my pagoda. Obediently enter the pagoda so you don't have to suffer any more pain." He wanted to give chase, but the countless petals around the pagoda exploded violently like fireworks without any hesitation. The destructive power that erupted trapped the pagoda in one spot. He was unable to completely break free from it within a short period of time. If he tried to retrieve the pagoda, the explosions that filled the sky would instantly cause him to suffer a serious injury. Chen Shi glanced at him indifferently. Seeing that all the demons had left the valley, he didn't stop. With a wave of his hand, a gust of wind swept up from the ground, carrying the withered petals in the valley, like a long river of petals. Chen Shi stood on this river of petals, supported by the petals, and chased after Ying Kong and the others. Demon suppressing pagoda, demon suppressing immortal light. Yang Xian let out a soft cry as he formed another strange seal, and it entered the pagoda. The pagoda shook, and the hexagonal crystal at the top of the pagoda immediately burst forth with golden light that was hundreds of meters long. The light swept through the surroundings, and the countless flower petals were annihilated on the spot. Even the terrifying destructive power of the explosion subsided in an instant. "Chase!" Yang Xian shouted to the disciples behind him. He took the lead and quickly chased after Ying Kong and the others with the pagoda. Immediately, in the sky above the southern wilderness, Chen Shi and the others rushed to the myriad demon valley with all their strength, while Yang Xian and a group of elite disciples chased after them. In the front, there was rolling demon chi, but behind, there was a large amount of golden light emitted by the pagoda. The scene was really terrifying. Each of them was using their maximum speed. The 100-flower valley was in the center of the southern wilderness. No matter which direction they went, they could reach it in the shortest time possible. At some point, the demon clan had appeared at the edge of the myriad demon valley. In the valley, thousands of demon clans had already gathered together. Kai Hua stood at the front and looked up at the outside of the valley. Seeing a black mass coming from afar, his eyes suddenly burst with light. "Brothers, Ying Kong is back. Empress Chen Shi and a large number of demon clans are behind. Everyone, get ready. As soon as Ying Kong arrives, we will immediately open the formation map according to the method King said." The king had once said that the formation map set up in the valley had unfathomable power, even without the king presiding over it. Even without Empress Kong's help, its power is still infinite. Even if a cultivator comes, he can't break the formation map. Kai Hua exuded a steady aura, and his words seemed to be unusually confident. Regarding the words that Sakura had said, it could be said that he firmly believed it. Howl! In the sky, a high-pitched eagle cry pierced through the sky. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 299. The jade slips that Kai Hua and the others spat out seemed to have some kind of inexplicable power that drew out the formation diagram above the valley. The formation diagram was so big that it could cover the sky and the sun, covering the entire myriad demon valley. Looking up from the valley, one could see that there really was a diagram above them. It was a diagram with mysterious runes on it. Each of these runes contained an inconceivable power, containing boundless mysteries. They contained the trajectories of heaven and earth, and within them, one could see the truth of heaven and earth. It was as if they were formed from the trajectories of heaven and earth. There were also countless mysterious cloud seals engraved on the formation diagram. It was very mysterious. If one looked carefully, one could see that the formation diagram seemed to contain a completely independent heaven and earth, as if it had formed its own space. It was truly mysterious and boundless. This is a formation diagram. Chen Shi couldn't help but have a look of disbelief on his face. He looked at the huge formation diagram above him that covered the entire sky. How is this possible? How does Di Shitian have a formation diagram? Didn't they say that in ancient times, more than half of the formation diagrams were damaged in the Great War, and the rest of the formation diagrams escaped and disappeared into heaven and earth, never to be seen again? How did he get a formation diagram? No, this isn't an ancient formation diagram. It's newly refined. Chen Shi was Chen Shi after all. He had received the inheritance of goddess Baihua, and his experience and knowledge were so rich that few people in the world could compare to him. She was naturally no stranger to formation diagrams. According to what she knew, formation diagrams had existed since the ancient times. Moreover, they had once displayed extraordinary splendor. At that time, every formation diagram had unimaginable power. Once they were arranged, not only did the formation diagram form a world of its own, it also formed a space of its own. Moreover, the formation diagram was integrated into the world. It was connected to all things in the world, to the earth's spirit veins, to the sun, the moon, and the stars, and boundless spiritual chi. To shake a formation diagram was equivalent to shaking a large area of the earth's spirit veins. The formation diagram formed its own space, and once one fell into it, there was no way out. Formation diagrams were the ultimate embodiment of formation Tao. The origin of formation Tao was derived from the trajectories of heaven and earth. It contained the laws of heaven and earth, the truths of heaven, and the charm of the great Tao. Its power was boundless, and it was rarer than precious treasures. How could Chen Shi not be surprised to see a formation diagram here? Formation diagram, open. Within the dazzling light, the pagoda began to expand rapidly, and within a few breaths of time, the small pagoda had grown to the size of a mountain that was several hundred feet tall. It emitted a boundless divine radiance. Just like that, it came crashing down from the sky above the myriad demon valley. There was no need to doubt that if this huge pagoda came crashing down, the entire myriad demon valley would be flattened in an instant. All life forms would be crushed into fine powder, terrifying to the extreme. Kaka. Bang bang bang. However, with the formation covering it, how could the pagoda unleash its power? The clouds rolled, and suddenly, a scene appeared in the eyes of all the demons in the valley. It was as if the myriad demon valley had been isolated from the original world. It was in an inexplicable world. Around the valley, there were huge mountains of bones rising into the sky. Endless white bones were everywhere in the mountains of bones. At the foot of the mountain of bones, there was a dense army of skeletons everywhere. Each and every one of these skeletons had balls of mysterious soul flames in their heads. They had a unique aura of life. They were arranged neatly together, just like an army of skeletons. On the mountain of bones, there was a throne made of white bones. On the throne sat a giant-like skeleton king. The aura of death on his body was very terrifying. There were a total of 8 such bone mountains. In the center, which was directly above the myriad demon valley, there was a supreme bone mountain and a supreme sovereign king. This king was dressed in white bone armor. In his hand was the most domineering halberd of all weapons, the sky halberd. Above his head was the terrifying scene of the pagoda pressing down. When the pagoda pressed down, the supreme skeleton king suddenly opened his eyes. The fire in his eyes was like a lantern, shooting out a shocking divine light. With a roar, he stood up from the throne, waved the halberd in his hand, and smashed it heavily on the pagoda. Boom boom boom. With a terrifying sound, the pagoda, which was originally unparalleled in power, was smashed away by the halberd. The kings on the other 8 mountains of bones also roared in unison, and the ground faintly shook. Then, 8 kings and 1 supreme skeleton king hid in the clouds at the same time and disappeared. It was as if the scene just now had never happened. The scene was very strange. Puff. The pagoda was controlled by Yang Xian. When it was blasted away, the backlash immediately made his whole body feel as if it was struck by lightning. He immediately spat out a mouthful of red essence blood. The air in front of him was dyed red. What is this? Yang Xian was shocked, and stormy waves surged in his heart. He still couldn't believe that the pagoda would be blasted away in a face-to-face encounter. This scene really scared him out of his wits. What a powerful formation diagram. No wonder it's said that once one can evolve a formation diagram, There's almost nothing in this world that can hurt him. He's invincible in the same realm. It's true. When Chen-Shi saw this, he slowly retracted his gaze and muttered to himself. The worry in his heart was completely put down. With the formation diagram, it would be almost impossible to break it unless those old fellows made a move. When all the demons in the valley saw this, they couldn't help but cheer. The southern barbarian was put down for the time being. In the heavenly demon mystic realm, the human clan walked a mountain of knives and a sea of fire. The heavenly demons wouldn't take care of them. They wanted half of the human clan cultivators to die before they reached the heavenly yin-yang bridge. Every step could be said to be wandering between life and death. However, those who were able to survive were undoubtedly the elites among the cultivators who came this time, the strong ones. The demons on the demon island discussed animatedly in groups of 3 to 5, talking about what they had experienced in the mystic realm. They all wanted to find some brothers who had similar temperaments to gather together and form an alliance. When they reached the bridge, they could look out for each other and fight with each other to have a greater chance of crossing the ancient bridge. However, most of the demon clan members found a secluded corner and silently operated their cultivation methods to adjust their state of mind. They were all making their final preparations for the upcoming bitter battle. During this period of time, Di Shitian's figure appeared on the high platform in the square in front of the third conscience questioning hall. He looked at the almost identical things on the high platform. His expression was not too surprised, but he stood in place and secretly pondered for a while. The first time, it asked me for courage. The second time, it asked me for responsibility and universal love. The third time, it asked me for wisdom. It asked me to find the exit of the big maze in limited time. He muttered to himself, but a trace of confidence appeared. How can a mere maze stump me? However, I'd like to know what the fourth question is about. Di Shitian only muttered for a while, and without much hesitation, he walked into the purple divine pillar again. He was planning to complete the entire Wenshin Road in one go. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 300. On the path of reflection, one could only move forward and not backward. If one had the heart to move forward, one would be able to reach the clouds in a spurt of energy. If one took a step back, one would fall off a cliff. If one's courage was lost, then no matter what decision one made, it would be impossible to have that kind of fearless determination. It would be extremely difficult to pass again. Di Shitian took 3 steps in a row. There were only 5 steps in the path of reflection, but he had already completed more than half of it. At this point, there was no reason for him to give up. As long as he dared to move forward, even if he failed, he would have no regrets. If he retreated, even if he could convince others, how could he convince himself? An incomplete heart. That was a flaw. If one's heart was flawless, then one's heart would be clear. Even a rotten piece of wood could become a genius and have the qualifications to climb to the peak. After realizing the benefits of the path of reflection, how could Di Shitian retreat so easily? After passing the 3rd hall of reflection, he immediately took the 4th step. His body disappeared in the purple divine pillar. In the blink of an eye, after a moment of distraction, Di Shitian's body appeared in an unknown place again. As usual, the memories of the path of reflection and the tests in his mind were all sealed in an instant. Or rather, they were temporarily forgotten. He would only think that he had just been teleported in from outside the secret realm. He had no idea that another test had fallen on him. Sister Shin, this heavenly demon secret realm is really scary. Previously, on the Mountain of Blades, there were already tens of thousands of people who died. They were also minced by those annoying blade chiefs. It's too tragic. We went through so much to get over the Mountain of Blades, but now we're in a sea of fire. It's so hot. Little Butterfly rubbed her forehead. Her hand was wet with sweat. She stuck out her tongue and grumbled. There were large groups of cultivators all around them. At a glance, it was impossible to tell how many there were. There were simply too many of them. Even the mountain of blades did not kill many of them. There were probably no less than 30 to 40,000 cultivators who died. Of course, most of the cultivators who died were unlucky children who had low cultivation bases among all the cultivators and did not have any masters or friends to help them. However, 30 to 40,000 cultivators were equivalent to hundreds of thousands of cultivators who had entered the secret realm. Even if they died, there wouldn't be much of a reaction. After passing the Mountain of Blades, the next step was naturally the Sea of Fire. In front of them was a sea of fire. This fire was very strange. It was black in color, a black flame that made people's heart tremble. Although it can preserve one's youth and increase one's longevity, 500 years later, when lightning strikes you, you must see your nature clearly and avoid it in advance. If you can avoid it, you'll live as long as the heavens. If you can't, you'll die. 500 years later, fire strikes you from the sky. This fire is not a heavenly fire, nor is it an ordinary fire. It's called yin fire. It starts from the Yongquan acupoint and goes straight to the Niyuan palace. The internal organs turn to ashes and the limbs rot, turning 1,000 years of bitter cultivation into an illusion. 500 years later, wind strikes you. This wind is not the wind from the east, south, or west, nor is it the wind from the north. It's also not the wind from the willows, pines, and bamboo. It's called the wind of death. It blows into the 6 organs from the fontanelle, through the dantian, through the 9 orifices, and dissipates the flesh and bones. Therefore, you must avoid it. This was the legendary 3 disasters. And yin fire was one of the 3 disasters. It could be seen that its power was not to be underestimated. Yes, Kotomi has also seen records about yin fire in ancient books. Kotomi slightly frowned and said, "Yin fire comes from the soles of the feet and enters the body. The first thing it burns is the true essence in the body. The impurities in the true essence are nourishment for the yin fire. The more impurities there are, the more terrifying the yin fire will be when it burns. Moreover, when it burns, the true essence in the body will go berserk and rampage through the body. If one state of mind is not enough to control it, not to mention the yin fire, one's body will directly explode and die." She seemed to be very familiar with this secret history. The Qin family's foundation was not ordinary. All right, Shin let's not dawdle. Others are afraid of yin fire, but only us Qin family disciples are not. Let's go, this sea of fire won't cause too much harm to us. Instead, it will allow the yin fire to refine the impurities in our bodies. This is a rare opportunity, a fortuitous encounter. The middle-aged scholar laughed. He was not afraid at all and walked forward with a carefree expression. The other cultivators also began to move. In the sea of fire, it was the same no matter where you were. There was not much difference. The human cultivators were crossing the sea of fire and the killing trap that the heavenly demon had specially prepared for them. Once they passed through the sea of fire, they would set foot on the 2 islands on either side of the heavenly yin-yang bridge. This also meant that the human race and the demon race would finally meet face to face in the mystic realm. Whoosh! On the square of another island in the mystic realm, a divine light shone down and Di Shitian's black-robed figure appeared again. As usual, he stood on the high platform and closed his eyes to absorb his gains. After that, he opened his eyes and gulped down a few mouthfuls of spirit wine. Then, as usual, he stepped into the last purple divine pillar. This was the 5th time. Not long after that, about 2 hours later, Yi Zichen's expression changed. Di Shitian's figure appeared on another island. The path of reflection, the path of reflection. I finally know why the path of reflection appeared here. It turns out that what I obtained was the right to inherit the heavenly demon's legacy, the key to opening the treasure trove. I finally understand. A rare trace of a thick smile appeared on Sakra's face. He spread out his left hand, and on the palm of his left hand, shockingly, a mysterious imprint strangely appeared. The mark was in the shape of a purple lotus flower. It looked as if it had grown directly from the palm of his hand and was not deliberately branded there. It was vivid and lifelike, as if it were real. The path of reflection first tests courage, then responsibility, wisdom, and so on. These 5 tests encompass all the qualities that a king or a paragon needs to possess. As soon as the heavenly demons enter, they first have to go through the tests of the path of reflection. After completing all the tests, they only gave me this mark. If I'm not wrong, there should be another test. Sakra looked at the mark in his hand. Although there wasn't anything that could prove his conjecture, he wasn't a fool. After passing all the tests, he carefully thought about the whole scene of Wenshin Road from the beginning. A conjecture immediately took root in his mind. Just as he had said, the 5 interrogations on the Heartseeker path, when all of them were added together, shockingly represented almost all the qualities that a qualified king should possess. Moreover, the mark that appeared silently in his hand also confirmed his conjecture. If he was not wrong, this mark was most likely an important item needed to open the heavenly demon's legacy. Although he passed through the path of reflection, he did not directly teleport to the heavenly demon's true treasure trove. If he was not wrong, there should be another test. The path of reflection had not only 5 steps, but 6. As for the final test, Sakra's eyes revealed a look of confidence. His face once again returned to its usual indifference and calmness as he swept his gaze across the surroundings. It was still the same high platform, but the towering divine pillars on the platform had completely changed. Not 2, but only 1, and that was the black heavenly divine pillar. That was the path to leave. Gulp. He opened the wine god's gourd and casually shook it. The wine in the gourd rippled as he poured it into his mouth. Then he strode forward and quickly entered the pillar. The final test. Here I come. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidien.com. Chapter 301. Haha, there hasn't been a single human on the opposite island. Don't tell me they all died in the heavenly demon's mountain of blades and sea of flames. If that's the case, we won't have to risk our lives to fight after crossing the bridge. I hope that group of cultivators all fall. What's there to be afraid of? Although there are only tens of thousands of us here, once we reach the bridge, all our cultivation will be sealed. With the weak physique of the humans, I can kill 17 or 18 of them with one slap. Comparing their physique with ours, they should drink milk in their mother's womb for a few more years. That's right. It is said that the martial cultivation of the humans is based on our demonic physique. How can they compare to us? Don't worry, this time when we reach the bridge, I swear I won't stop until the blood of those cultivators stains the ancient bridge red. Before coming, I told my little brats that this time we must bring back a few cultivators' heads and use them as wine cups. Pour the wine and drink it. I heard that using human heads as wine cups makes the wine more mellow and fragrant. On the Demon Island, bursts of heated discussions rose and fell one after another. Everyone seemed to be unusually excited, as if they were looking forward to the inevitable war. While talking, their expressions were quite excited. It was no wonder. Although the demons gathered here from all over the world, they were usually scattered here and there. Although they had some strength, they were still oppressed by the cultivators of the immortal cultivation world to the point that they couldn't even breathe. But so what if they couldn't breathe? If they went all out, it would only bring disaster. They didn't know how long they had been stifling this anger in their hearts. This gathering of demons could be said to be the elites of the demon race for thousands of years. Gathering here, their courage was naturally boosted. In addition, once they stepped on the ancient bridge, even the most powerful immortal cultivators would instantly become a person without any cultivation base. They could only rely on their physical body. Although their physical body had been tempered by the true yuan and spiritual qi, it was just a side effect of cultivation. Their strength was only relative to ordinary people. But in front of the demons, it was just a child's play. The situation was completely reversed in an instant. Usually, they didn't dare to provoke the strong cultivators, but now they had the opportunity to suppress them and kill those high and mighty cultivators at any time. He was going to vent his anger on the last time. Think about it, under such circumstances, how could he not be excited? No one realized that Di Shitian had mysteriously appeared in the midst of the bustling demons. He did not seem to be abrupt at all. Instead, he had a very natural aura. As soon as he appeared, he heard the conversations of the surrounding demon race. He shook his head slightly and said to himself, how would they dare to come to Liangshan if they don't have a third of the strength? Although the human immortal cultivators will be greatly weakened, it won't be too exaggerated. Otherwise, those immortal cultivators aren't brainless. Why would they specially come to die? At that time, it would definitely be a tragic slaughter. He wondered how many demons could survive here. These are all elites. Although he didn't agree with the demons' one-sided view, he didn't say it out loud to dampen their spirits. With his current eyesight, he could naturally see most of the things on the island with a single glance. All of a sudden, his eyes flashed as he swept his gaze over a remote corner. He saw a few familiar figures. Patter. Di Shitian's footsteps always carried a steady aura. They were extremely powerful. The distance of each step was not far. He did not deliberately hide the sound of his footsteps. The sound of footsteps was coming towards Silverhair and the others, and he didn't deliberately hide it, so naturally, it couldn't escape their ears. They all turned their heads and looked towards the source of the sound. When they saw Sakura rushing towards them, they didn't hide their surprise. But in the blink of an eye, Silverhair's mouth pulled a thick smile as he nodded and said gently, Brother Di, you've also come. You're much later than us. I wonder how many steps you've taken on Wenshin Road? I only passed the second test. I failed on the third step and was sent here. Silverhair and the others knew that he was also walking on the path of questioning. Moreover, he came out so late. Even an idiot could guess that he must have passed more than one test. At least, he must have passed the second test. The rest could not be estimated. Therefore, Di Shitian did not say anything about stopping at the second path of questioning hall. However, he didn't tell them everything. As the saying goes, speak human language when you see human language. At any time, one could not be without scheming. This was called saying that one could only speak 30% of the truth. One must never let one's guard down. How important was the path of questioning? If he told others that he had passed all the tests, even Silverhair and the others would think differently when they looked at him. You passed the second test. When Silverhair heard this, he was not surprised. After experiencing it personally, he knew how difficult it was. A trace of self-mockery appeared on his face as he said, what a pity. Although I also entered the second stage, even if I failed and was teleported here, I still don't understand what the second stage is meant to interrogate me. There was a desire to know in his words. He looked at Di Shitian. But he did not ask directly. The Blood King had a blade of grass in his mouth. His face was full of evil, but he asked curiously, that's right. I, Old am really curious about what the second trial is about. Poor Old I don't even know why I was kicked out. Brother Di, please tell us so that we can solve this knot in our hearts. Those gathered here were all people who had met together on the high platform before. Unfortunately, they did not pass and stopped at the second test. It would be a lie to say that they were not curious. As soon as they heard this, pairs of eyes silently stared at Di Shitian. Although they did not say anything, the meaning in their eyes could not be more obvious. Actually, it's nothing. Di Shitian saw it and smiled faintly. He said, the second test is about responsibility and fraternity. I only knew about it after the fact. Responsibility and fraternity? Silverhair and the others could not help but fall into deep thought at the same time. The expressions on their faces kept changing. It was obvious that they were not calm in their hearts. Could this ancient bridge be the heavenly yin-yang bridge? Di Shitian turned his head to look at the ancient bridge that appeared between the two islands. Although he asked, he was already very sure. The ancient bridge exuded a simple and majestic aura, which seemed to contain the aura of antiquity times. One end of the bridge was here, but the other end of the bridge extended to an unknown place. The ancient bridge was an arch bridge. It was just unknown what the bridge was made of. There was always a mysterious aura flowing in the bridge. It seemed mysterious and unfathomable. It was definitely not an ordinary thing. This is the heavenly yin-yang bridge. When the time comes, a river will appear in front of you. It's the Huang Quan Blue River. Silver Hair said with emotion, although thousands of years have passed, I still remember the scene when the Huang Quan Big River appeared. It was really spectacular. It's still unforgettable. I'm in the mood to see it again. There was an inexplicable yearning for the scene when the Huang Quan appeared in his eyes. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't the case. Right now, there was only an ancient bridge in this world. There was no river flowing under the bridge. Not only that, this bridge was erected in the void. If there was a river, it would probably appear in the void. That scene could be said to be incomparably spectacular and a rare wonder. Legend had it that the heavenly river was a divine river that crossed the void. The water in the river was a star. It was unusually beautiful and was an irreplaceable wonder between heaven and earth. Is the island opposite for the human clan cultivators to rest in? Di Shitian looked at the island opposite again and asked. Yes, our island and the island opposite are nestled together by the heavenly yin-yang bridge. When the ancient bridge opens, both sides will get on the bridge at the same time. It will be the time for a fight. Silver Hair calmly poured a mouthful of spiritual wine into his mouth and looked at the island opposite with a trace of coldness in his eyes. Obviously, when the time came, a fight would definitely be unavoidable. Suddenly, Di Shitian's eyes narrowed and contracted violently. He said in a deep voice, "Look, there are people coming out from the island opposite." Indeed, on the originally empty island, there were figures walking out from the divine light. The first one was an old man in a purple robe. Then, there were cultivators walking out one after another. Their speed was unusually fast, like a fountain. On the originally empty island, dozens and hundreds of people rushed out in an instant. Many of the people who appeared were wearing the same clothes. Needless to say, they were either from the same sect or the same family. Such a group could be said to be quite extraordinary. In the blink of an eye, there were tens of thousands of cultivators standing on the island. Moreover, the number did not stop and continued to increase. It was definitely not just 10 or 20,000. If all of them came out, there would be no less than 100,000. Di Shitian suddenly let out a cry of surprise. The look in his eyes became complicated. Why are they here too? He murmured softly, unable to hide the complicated emotions in his words. However, he didn't deliberately avoid them. He followed their gazes and saw that there were two women standing in the crowd. With their unique temperaments, they were like cranes in a flock of chickens even in the crowd. They were easy to spot. The young girl in plain clothes had a veil on her face, but he could still clearly recognize her at a glance. Familiar. Because to him, that figure was simply too familiar. They had been together for more than a year. It was hard not to have a deep impression of her after seeing each other every day. Why is Kotomi here? Didn't I return the green silk zither to her before I left? Logically speaking, she should be at home cultivating and refining the zither. In Sakra's heart, there was a trace of puzzlement. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Naturally, many of the human cultivators had been paying extra attention to them for a long time. Many people's expressions changed unnaturally when they saw Silver Hair, the Blood Dragon King, and the other powerhouses of the 8 Demon Kings. He revealed a solemn expression. Sister Shin, look. Isn't that brother Di? It was really, really big brother Di. Great, I knew it. How could big brother Di not come to such a big scene? Xiao Dai and the other two found a secluded place to stand and also glanced at the opposite side. Xiao Dai's eyes rolled around. Suddenly, she saw Di Shitian standing opposite. Suddenly, she couldn't help cheering. When the middle-aged scholar and Katomi heard it, they immediately turned their heads and looked in the direction Xiao Dai was pointing. Shitian, it's really you. Katomi's gaze fell on Di Shitian, and her body suddenly trembled. Her mind, which had always been as clear as ice, collapsed in an instant. An extremely complicated emotion appeared in her eyes. It was as if she was afraid of returning home. It was really difficult to explain the complexity in her heart to outsiders. When Qinshin discovered it, Indra's gaze was also looking at her. For a moment, the two people's gazes met, looking at each other across the island. Although they didn't speak, when they looked at each other, they actually had a feeling of telepathy. They could see the general meaning in each other's eyes. This is Di Shitian. The middle-aged scholar looked back and forth at Di Shitian with interest. Although they were separated by the island, he could observe a lot of information about the other party just from the aura and temperament of a person. After careful observation, the middle-aged scholar's eyes flashed with inexplicable surprise. Before coming, Big Brother told me some things about Di Shitian. Before he left, although he was also in human form, the aura on his body was at most a little stronger than a Foundation establishment cultivator. But now, it seems that the aura on his body is obviously that of a real demon king in human form. Could it be that he transformed from a demon beast to a demon king in less than 2 years? He muttered to himself in his heart. He was very clear that according to various circumstances, Di Shitian definitely did not condense an inner core when he left the Zither Sound Valley. His appearance was only a result of some mysterious secret technique that allowed him to transform in advance. His essence did not undergo a fundamental change. But in front of him, it completely overturned what he knew before. Interesting. I didn't think that my niece would like a demon king. A meaningful expression appeared on the middle-aged scholar's face. However, although my Qin family has no enmity towards demons, a mere demon king who has only condensed an inner core, no. Strictly speaking, according to the ancient demonic division of strength, a demon king who has just become a demon doesn't have the qualifications to marry a woman of my Qin family. Although you were the one who brought back the Lu Qi Qin, I still have to consider it. His gaze flickered as he came to a decision. He withdrew his gaze and smiled faintly. Out of the way, out of the way. Let us brothers go to the front. I heard that every time the secret realm opens, many demons come. I want to see it for myself. A loud roar sounded from behind, followed by a series of bangs. The sound of heavy footsteps came from the ground, as if a giant was walking. The momentum was extraordinary. Crash. It was as if that loud roar had really opened up a path from the back. Seeing that they had really parted to form a path, 3 tall and sturdy men immediately strode forward from behind. However, the people who parted looked at the 3 men with eyes full of awe and respect, but full of surprise, as if they had seen something inconceivable. Their gazes were fixed on the 3 figures who were rushing forward. They looked surprised and couldn't help but want to laugh. Big brother, look. They're all staring at us. The 3 men were very tall and sturdy. The smallest of them looked around and called out in a naive voice. What's there to be afraid of? They'll definitely be stunned by our appearance. This was tailor-made for us by the young miss. It's one of a kind and must be very handsome. Why don't us 3 brothers show these ignorant people their horizons? An even louder voice sounded. Okay. In an instant, a burly man wrapped in pitch-black armor jumped forward and landed heavily on the ground. It was as if a large stone had fallen from the sky, causing the ground to emit a dull sound. Looking at this burly man, the armor on his body could be said to be very strange. From head to toe, he was wrapped in armor. It must be known that this armor was not similar to the clothes worn by ordinary cultivators. It was not thick, but soft. It was a kind of heavy armor like the armor worn by generals on ancient battlefields. It was not light, but very heavy. Even the head was wrapped up, only revealing 2 eyes and a mouth. The exposed parts were covered by a strange transparent crystal. Yaya, it was a complete steel monster. There was not a single opening for people to attack. The man raised his head and shouted, "I'm the boss, Qin Kai. My entire body is covered in steel and is indestructible." The armor was densely covered with countless strange patterns, exuding a ferocious and heavy ancient aura. It truly had an indestructible aura. The second burly man jumped out with 2 golden, kitchen knives in his hands. "Catcher! Catcher!" The 2 knives collided with each other twice, then he shouted with a serious face, "I am the second brother, Qin Sheng. No matter how high my cultivation base is, I am still afraid of kitchen knives." The edges of the 2 kitchen knives, which were used to cut vegetables, flashed with an imperceptible cold light. That light made people's hearts turn cold. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, the last big man also raised the dark and swarthy brick in his hand and roared, "I'm the third brother, Qin Xian. Do you see my treasure? No matter how much you wear, I'll knock you down with this brick." Ha ha! Before they could finish dealing with the boss, the surrounding cultivators could not help but laugh. Many people were directly struck down by lightning. They were charred on the outside and tender on the inside. These 3 brothers were not the 3 brothers of the Qin clan who had appeared in the southern barbarian lands, Qin Kai, Qin Sheng, and Qin Xian. Originally, these 3 were simple-minded and not very bright. Usually, they would make a lot of jokes in the cultivation world. However, their cultivation was not bad, so generally, no one would make enemies with them. They just treated it as a joke. The 3 of them had always been there to join in the fun. Now, they even followed them to the secret realm and joined in. At this time, their appearance was really not ordinary. The eldest brother was covered in steel like a man of iron. The second brother was holding 2 kitchen knives. He did not look like a cultivator, but more like a cook. The third brother was holding a brick. These 3 clowns were really not ordinary funny. The surrounding cultivators roared with laughter. They did not take the 3's words seriously at all. What steel all over body? Could it block magic treasures? What kitchen knives? Since when could kitchen knives kill people? If you want to hit people with a brick, you should at least take a better one. Rumble. Right at this time, the 2 islands suddenly trembled violently at the same time. It was as if there was an earthquake. Many people who were not prepared were shaken to the ground on the spot. A terrifying pressure swept across the 2 islands. This aura was really terrifying to the extreme. In an instant, it pressed down. It did not seem to be a deliberate pressure. It just naturally spread out. However, when it fell on the cultivators and monsters, it was as if there were countless mountains pressing down on their heads. That was the heavenly might. It made people unable to have the slightest thought of resisting. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. I support the author. I support the original reading. Chapter 303. It was so powerful that no matter who it was, all the creatures on the 2 islands could not help but bend their knees and kneel down. Regardless of whether they were nascent soul cultivators, out-of-aperture cultivators, or even more powerful cultivators, there was no exception. They were all forced to kneel on the ground, cold sweat dripping from their foreheads. The demons on the other island were similarly unable to resist. Large numbers of demons knelt down. However, they weren't forced to kneel like the humans. Instead, they were forced to kneel by force. And when this aura landed on the bodies of the various demons, all of them felt a different feeling. It was as though the one who emitted this aura was an ancestor of the demon race, an elder. It exuded an amiable aura. It was this aura that caused all the demons to involuntarily kneel down and kowtow. They were paying homage to the ancestors of the demon clan. This was the most direct respect for the heavenly demon who opened up the secret realm. This was an action that came from the heart. This is the remaining aura of the heavenly demon. Di Shitian felt the aura that seemed to be everywhere between heaven and earth. In this aura, he could clearly feel a strong reluctance to part, a kind of attachment to the demon clan. It brushed past the demons, as if they were looking at their children. This feeling was very intimate and very comfortable. Di Shitian did not kneel down. He just bent down and bowed deeply. After walking the Wenshan road, the current him had a clear mind. He had even touched the peak of the realm. Even now, a trace of the realm at the peak was still deeply imprinted in his mind. From time to time, he would comprehend the realm within and point out the direction for himself. Although the heavenly demon was powerful, he could not make him kneel down. What the heavenly demon had done in the past was indeed worthy of the respect of the demon clan and Di Shitian, but he did not kneel down. He could kneel to the heavens, to the earth, and to his parents. No matter how powerful others were, they could not make him kneel. He only bowed deeply, but Silverhair and the others did not. Instead, they knelt down like the other members of the demon clan. Their expressions were filled with respect. After Silverhair finished kneeling, he stood up and looked at Sakura with a solemn expression. Lord Heavenly Demon had opened up this place to shelter us when our race was in danger and prevented our demon race from being exterminated. This achievement is higher than the sky. For me, Silverhair, to be able to come here twice and pay my respects is also a kind of honor. However, according to the past, the Huangquan River will appear soon. At that time, the ancient bridge will also open. At that time, on the ancient bridge, remember not to be soft-hearted. To cross the bridge, every inch of the bridge is an inch of blood. This road is paved with blood. If possible, help take care of you. Taking a deep breath, Silverhair looked up into the distance. Hehe, this moment has finally arrived. I, Old Jiao, fought with that group of cultivators on the bridge until the sky turned dark. I killed countless of them, but unfortunately, I still couldn't cross the ancient bridge and snatch the top 10 spots. 7 spots were taken by that group of cultivators, and only 3 of us from the demon race made it. Back then, my cultivation was still low. This time, tut, I don't believe that I can't win against that group of bullshit cultivators. The Blood Flood Dragon King stood up and looked at the ancient bridge. Traces of bloody light appeared in his eyes. His words actually revealed the situation back then. Previously, in the secret realm, there were actually 7 immortal cultivators that had passed through the ancient bridge, whereas there were only 3 from the demon race. This ratio was indeed frighteningly low. At the same time, it also revealed that even if the immortal cultivators sealed their cultivation, their strength was still relatively terrifying. Especially when there were so many of them. They must not be underestimated. Otherwise, how did the cultivators get the 7 places? The cultivators knew that there was danger, but they still dared to come again and again. Did they just want to die? The strangeness of the ancient bridge must have been known by the immortal cultivation world long ago. It was impossible that they didn't have a way to deal with it. I've heard Boss say that crossing the ancient bridge would bring about a fortuitous encounter. No matter who it is, they would be able to obtain great benefits. Back then, Boss had obtained a great fortuitous encounter in the secret realm. That was why he was able to cultivate at such a rapid pace. Until now, he is undoubtedly the strongest among the 8 of us. Unfortunately, Boss always keeps his mouth shut about the things behind the ancient bridge and asks us to find it ourselves. This time, we must cross no matter what. A trace of determination flashed in the eyes of the golden-winged Bat King. His gaze was fixed on the ancient bridge. Cross the bridge, kill those who block it. Obviously, Silverhair and the other 3, as powerful existences among the 8 demon kings, were eager to get the 10 places to cross the ancient bridge. Even the Misty Cloud's king, Bai Zian, who rarely spoke, spat out a few words coldly. Looking at their words, it seemed that the 4 of them were going to join hands. If the 4 of them really joined hands, no one could stop them on the bridge. They were determined to get the 4 places. Rumble. A terrifying roar came from the horizon. This sound was extremely frightening, as if it came from a ghost. It was extremely uncomfortable to listen to, but it caused all living creatures, regardless of whether they were from the demon clan or the immortal cultivators, to look in the direction of the sound. From here, they could only see 2 islands and a small part of the huge ancient bridge. Outside the islands, there was a hazy fog everywhere, blocking their sight. But now, the endless fog was gradually dissipating. It was like seeing the bright moon through the fog. When the fog dissipated, the majestic ancient bridge was presented in front of them. This ancient bridge was really long. At a glance, they couldn't see the other end of the bridge and where it extended to. On the other side, there seemed to be a cloud of fog. It was a mysterious place. The bridge was a stone arch bridge. Now that the fog was gradually dispelled, the surrounding scene slowly became clear. In the horizon, an incomparably gigantic river directly traversed the void, gushing over. This river was abnormally vast. It seemed to be an immeasurably long river that could flow freely in the void. The long river surged from the distance. From the horizon to the front, it was like the Milky Way falling from the 9 heavens. It was like Xing-He turning upside down. It was an indescribable majestic sight. This long river directly passed under the ancient bridge. It was vast and mighty, continuous and unending, truly majestic. No one knew where this river came from, and no one knew where its end was. But where the long river passed, not even a goose feather floated up. The most eye-catching thing was the water in the river. The color of the water was very strange. It was a kind of dark green water, and there were wisps of green water vapor rising from the water. No living creature could survive in the river. Ah! Save me, who can save me? It's so painful, so uncomfortable. Hurry up and pull me out in the river. Ghostly howls constantly traveled to the ears of all living creatures. It was eerie, and hearing it made people feel an inexplicable chill in their bodies. Their scalps went numb. If one were to take a closer look, one would see numerous spirits floating up and down in the boundless jade water as they let out miserable shrieks. It was truly a sight that caused one's entire body to turn cold, causing one to shudder in fear. There were so many souls that one couldn't see the end of the river. There were so many of them that one couldn't even tell how many there were. Millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions. No one could count the souls in the river. These souls were bobbing up and down in the water, but as if they were suffering some kind of terrible punishment, they kept letting out mournful screams. It was very real. This river was none other than the legendary Yellow Springs River. When Di Tian saw the scene in the river, his brows unconsciously creased slightly. Silver Hair saw it from the side and took out his gourd calmly. He poured a few mouthfuls of water into his mouth and said, "This is the legendary Huang Quan River. No one knows how long this river is or how deep it is. However, this river is even more terrifying. No living creature can fly above the Huang Quan River. Once they appear above it, they will be directly pulled into the river. No living creature can exist in the river. The holy water of Huang Quan in the river will instantly corrode all living creatures that are pulled into the river. The souls can't escape and will be bound in the river, unable to transcend forever. Moreover, they will suffer endless pain and be tortured at all times. There is no rest for a moment. Legend has it that for every life that this Huang Quan River devours and every soul, the length of the river will increase by 1 foot. The more souls there are in the river, the longer Huang Quan River will be." Silver Hair took a deep breath and said seriously, "Brother Di, when you are on the ancient bridge later, you must remember not to let your body leave the ancient bridge. Once you are kicked out of the ancient bridge, no matter how powerful you are, you will not be able to escape the fate of being devoured by Huang Quan. That is even more terrifying than death. Indeed, this kind of situation where one could not transcend even after death and had to suffer endless torture in Huang Quan all the time, if it happened to him, it could be said that it was a rare kind of luck if he died completely. Otherwise, he would not be in control of his life and death." "Thank you for the reminder." Di Shitian did not need Silver Hair to deliberately remind him. When he saw the scene in the Huang Quan River, he knew how terrifying Huang Quan was. One must know that in the myths of his previous life, he had heard that there was a Huang Quan River in the underworld. The water in the river was said to be the most terrifying weak water. Looking at the current situation, Huang Quan was definitely not as simple as weak water. Boom! When Huang Quan appeared, the ancient bridge also changed in an instant. First, the huge stone tablet in front of the bridge suddenly emitted a huge divine light. In the divine light, the entire stone tablet began to mysteriously dissipate. As it dissipated, it constantly turned into mysterious talismans that connected together. There were so many of them that it was impossible to count them. These talismans flashed with endless divine light. Like a sky full of stars, it pounced towards the ancient bridge rapidly and circled around it continuously, just like a gigantic dragon. It formed an incomparably magical scene. These talismans were distributed on every part of the ancient bridge and mysteriously integrated into the ancient bridge. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 304. Every time a cloud seal entered the ancient bridge, the surface of the ancient bridge, which was originally simple and looked like an ordinary stone bridge, suddenly glowed. The original appearance of the ancient bridge was revealed inch by inch in the light. Snow white. The ancient bridge returned to its original appearance. Its color was snow white, just like the snowflakes falling in winter. It was so white that people couldn't bear to destroy it. It was like the floating clouds in the sky, emitting a mysterious aura that transcended the mortal world. It was unfathomable. Countless cloud seals entered the bridge, as if they had transformed into pure white clouds. From the looks of it, it looked more like a bridge of cloud. It was so pure and holy that people couldn't bear to leave a single blemish on it, as if it was a sin. The heaven-piercing yin-yang bridge was incomparably huge. It was like a white rainbow that stretched across the entire void, connecting it to an unpredictable and mysterious place. Under the bridge, the majestic yellow springs flowed endlessly. The countless souls in the river told everyone that this seemingly calm and tranquil river was actually a place of evil. The Huang Quan split the void in front of it. Only the cloud bridge above the Huang Quan was the only way to cross the Huang Quan. The cloud bridge was so huge that it could accommodate 100 people in a row. They wouldn't feel crowded even if they walked on it at the same time. It was magnificent and gorgeous. This couldn't be considered a bridge. It was more like a work of art. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, it would be hard to believe that there was such a magical ancient bridge in this world. Boom, boom, boom. Under the continuous integration of the cloud seals, the ancient bridge was transforming inch by inch, returning to its original appearance. Both the human and demon cultivators didn't even breathe heavily. They stared at the ancient bridge without blinking, afraid to miss even a single scene. Looking at the situation, this ancient bridge was definitely not a simple item. It was probably a treasure passed down from the ancient times. Along with the gradual appearance of the ancient bridge, the restrictions separating the two islands were also slowly disappearing. From the looks of it, once the transformation of the ancient bridge was complete, all of the restrictions would disappear in an instant. Then, they would be able to step onto the ancient bridge and embark on the path to heaven. Di Shitian was quietly waiting for the moment that everyone was looking forward to. The aura exuding from each of their bodies had unconsciously become unusually solemn. On the side of the demon race, those who had weapons all held their divine weapons tightly in their hands. They were making the final preparations for the bloody battle. Di Shitian gently patted Tiger Soul, which was still in the scabbard on his back. He did not immediately pull it out. Instead, he looked around him and looked at Silverhair and the others. As a demon king, no matter who it was impossible for them not to have their own weapon. However, he had never seen the weapons of Silverhair and the others. The only weapon he had seen was the strange jade bamboo cane in Bai Xian's hand. The jasper bamboo stick had never left her hand. Moreover, she was constantly drawing talismans and imprinting them into the jasper bamboo stick to strengthen it. It could be seen how much she cherished this jasper bamboo stick. Unknowingly, Silverhair's hands were suffused with traces of silver-white light. A pair of silver-white strange gloves covered his two slender hands. It was unknown what this pair of gloves was made of. It looked like silk, but it was unknown what kind of silk it was. Its entire body was silver-white. When it was worn on the hands, it was actually as thin as a cicada's wings. It slowly integrated into the skin and perfectly integrated with the hands. Only bits of silver light were emitted. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see that there were gloves on the hands. Swish! With a gentle wave of the hands, the air under the palms emitted a crisp tearing sound. It was incomparably sharp. There was a layer of ice crystals around the palms. Old Meng, your pair of silver-threaded mystic crystal gloves was actually refined by you. My goodness, this pair of silver-threaded mystic crystal gloves matched with your 8 major techniques. This time, it seems like no one will be able to stop you. Among the 10 spots, you definitely won't run away. When the Blood Dragon King saw the pair of gloves in Silverhair's hands, he actually sucked in a rare breath and said with a face of horror. In the Blood Dragon King's hands, he was holding a black mace. There were sharp barbs on the mace, making it look ferocious. If this mace were to smash on the body, it would probably pierce hundreds of bloody holes in an instant. It emitted a murderous aura. It was definitely not a normal weapon. The golden-winged Bat King's weapon was also quite strange. It was actually a blood-red hand. It was only a foot long, and its entire body seemed to be made of jade. It was as if it was made of blood-red crystals. In the blood hand, traces of bloodthirsty light were actually emitted. It was also not a proper divine weapon. One by one, they took out their own weapons. Obviously, no one had the slightest bit of carelessness. As soon as you stepped on the bridge, no matter how high your cultivation was, you would disappear in an instant. The only thing you could rely on was the weapon in your hand and your own body. Whoever was careless would be courting death. In the southern Barbarian, the surroundings of the myriad Demon Valley had long been covered by layers of fog. In the valley, one could see the scene outside, but from the outside, one could not see anything in the valley at all. The scene was extremely strange. Outside the valley, a huge spirit boat was fiercely stopping in mid-air. On the boat, Yang Xian looked coldly at the layers of clouds and fog. His eyes were filled with coldness and anger. He spat out resentfully, "Damn it, it's a formation map. It's actually a formation map. How could the southern barbarian demon tribe have a formation map? Such a treasure should be under my control. How could it be obtained by a group of demons?" His eyes revealed a trace of undisguised greed. He looked fiercely at the fog in front of him, and various expressions were constantly changing in his eyes. The formation map is too powerful. It's a world of its own. 3 batches of disciples went in a row, but none of them lasted for 30 minutes. They couldn't even send out the magic crystals to see what was inside. Damn it! Yang Xian waved his hand, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth gathered in the air to form a huge, multicolored palm. It slammed into the clouds below, but when it landed, it was as if it had hit cotton. The clouds churned and swallowed the palm, severing its connection with Yang Xian. It was unable to do anything to the formation diagram below. His face twitched violently a few times, and then became fierce. The power of the demon subduing pagoda in my hand is above that of the formation map. If I can use 1/10 of it, no, even 1/100th of it, I can destroy this formation map. But now, a trace of unwillingness appeared in his eyes. "Zhongqing, your disciple is here." Hearing Yang Xian's shout, Zhongqing, who had been respectfully guarding by his side, immediately came forward and answered respectfully. The southern barbarian demons used the formation map to defend. It will take a long time to break it. You immediately return to the sect as soon as possible and meet with your sect master. Tell him the truth here. Say that the formation map's defense is too strong, and I can't break it alone. Ask the sect master to personally lead the elites of the sect. Find a way to break the formation map. If we can destroy the southern barbarian demons, not only can we eliminate the hidden danger, but we can also obtain a formation map for the sect. The strength of the sect will greatly increase. Yang Xian raised his head to look at the void, and a trace of unwillingness appeared in his eyes. If he could break the formation on his own, then the final spoils of war would almost all be his. He could also take the formation for himself and wouldn't need to hand it over to others. However, if he asked for help from the sect, he wouldn't dare to say anything else, but the formation definitely wouldn't let him have it. How could he be willing to give up such a huge benefit just like that? I will follow Master's order. Zhongqing slightly frowned, but still respectfully agreed. Without hesitation, he prepared a little and immediately flew away on his flying sword. In the valley, Chen Shi was holding a little white tiger in his arms, and a vermilion bird stood on his shoulder. Behind him, the huge black ape king, the golden lion king, and even Kai Hua, Bai Yu, and the others were all standing together in the open space in the valley. Behind them, there were no less than hundreds of ordinary demon beasts, a large number of demons, and the demons in the myriad demon valley. At this time, there were no less than tens of thousands of demons gathered in the valley. Of course, this number included those spirit beasts that had just been born with spirituality. Looking at this situation, Chen Shi was obviously the leader in the valley. Sister Shi, it seems that they are going to invite powerhouses over. They can't really have a way to break the formation map in the valley, right? The red-crowned crane king's eyes were sharp, and he had already seen people leaving. It seemed that if nothing unexpected happened, they must be going to invite powerhouses to help. He couldn't help but say worriedly, "Don't worry, Your Highness." Kai Hua took a step forward and said respectfully to Chen Shi, "My lord said before leaving that as long as the formation map is opened, it will be connected to heaven and earth. The inside and outside of the myriad demon valley will be impregnable. Even if a powerhouse in the tribulation stage comes here without a powerful treasure in his hand, it will be difficult to break the formation map. In the formation map, each of the 8 white bone kings has a powerful combat strength no less than the late nascent soul stage and is close to the out-of-body stage. The white bone king in the center can fight with a powerhouse in the tribulation stage. There will be no problem. Your Highness, please stay in the valley at ease." In his heart, he secretly remembered that before Di Shitian left, he cautiously told him that as long as Chen Shi came, he should treat her like he was treated, and no neglect was allowed. He couldn't help but guess in his heart, is she the mistress? As soon as this idea came out, he immediately threw it away and didn't dare to think further. Yes, Sister Chen Shi, don't worry. When my brother comes back, Xiaobai will ask him to help beat them. Brother will definitely be able to chase them away. Lying in Chen Shi's embrace, Xiaobai rubbed her head against Chen Shi's soft chest and found a comfortable position, saying with a tender voice. Specks of starlight flashed in his eyes. In her heart, her brother was the strongest. As long as he was willing, there was nothing in this world that her brother couldn't do. This was a trust and worship that she had no reservations about. Xiaobai, there are some things that you don't understand. A complicated expression appeared on Chen Shi's face. She gently stroked Xiaobai's head and sighed, "Even though we have the formation map and are safe for the time being, if we want to chase these immortal cultivators away, unless 2 or more of the 8 demon kings who were famous a long time ago come, it will be difficult." Even though Di Shitian was strong, she didn't think that he could improve much in a short period of time. There were many things that required time to settle down. It wasn't something that could be achieved overnight. Before condensing the inner core, one could use tricks to quickly increase one's cultivation. However, after condensing the inner core, every step forward required hundreds or thousands of years of polishing. It was impossible to increase one's cultivation by a few levels in a year. Therefore, even if Di Shitian could come back in a short period of time, she wasn't too optimistic about it. "Xiaobai, sister will be in seclusion here for a few days. Do you have a secluded cave residence?" Chen Shi's expression changed a few times as she asked Xiaobai who was in her arms. "Yes." Xiaobai nodded without hesitation. Chen Shi looked up at the void and muttered to herself, "It seems that if I want to help the southern barbarian, I have to practice some of the secret techniques in the 100 Flowers treasure mirror. With the remaining half of the divine essence in my body, I should be able to raise my strength to a new level in a short period of time. If he didn't take away half of my divine essence, I would have been able to practice the strongest cultivation method in the treasure mirror. Her expression was elegant and silent. Rumble. The ancient bridge that spanned across the Huangquan let out a series of roars, and the bursts of divine light on the bridge strangely disappeared. All the strange phenomena dissipated, leaving only a towering cloud bridge in the void. The previous restriction was like a bubble, completely bursting. The cloud bridge appeared in front of all the cultivators and demons. Haha, there is no restriction on the heavenly yin-yang bridge. Go, 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 those 10 places are mine. What are you waiting for? Go, go across the bridge and get the treasure of the sky demon. Ascension to immortality is not a dream. Let's see who dares to block my immortal opportunity. Disciples, don't panic. Gather, rely on each other, and get on the bridge together. Gather your strength and fight. Once you get on the ancient bridge, your cultivation will be restrained. Take out your magic treasures, weapons, and talismans first. On the bridge, talismans are the most useful. Don't put them in your storage bag. Without true essence, you can't take them out. Carry them with you. Natal magic treasures. At this time, only the natal magic treasures can exert their power. Other magic treasures can't exert much power. Take out all your natal magic treasures. The heavenly yin-yang bridge can restrain true essence, but it can't restrain the connection between blood vessels. Use your natal magic treasures to fight the demons. Don't be afraid of them. The restriction on the ancient bridge that was blocking all living beings disappeared in an instant. Once it disappeared, there was no hesitation at all. They rushed onto the ancient bridge and ran from one end to the other. Their only goal was to seize the 10 precious spots. All the cultivators standing near the ancient bridge excitedly rushed onto the ancient bridge. However, the moment they stepped on the ancient bridge, they felt that the true essence in their body was restrained in an instant. They couldn't feel the slightest bit of it. Their bodies were empty. They couldn't sense or use the cultivation that they had gained through countless years of cultivation. This was the contrast of falling from the clouds to the mortal world. This immediately caused many people to suffer. In the beginning, there were still some people who wanted to get lucky and fly across the bridge as fast as they could. Even if they couldn't, they could still rush a distance and take the lead. Unfortunately, this kind of mentality turned them into tragic birds on the spot. As soon as they arrived above the ancient bridge, they immediately fell down like weights. Without the protection of true essence, this fall caused the blood and qi in their bodies to tumble, and even their internal organs were dislocated from the fall. Of course, this was only a small portion of the brave warriors who didn't believe in heresy. Most of the cultivators called their friends and gathered together to step onto the ancient bridge. They took out all kinds of treasures. Among them, the natal magic treasures were the only means that were not restricted. They could be controlled by blood vessels. However, the most in their hands were all kinds of talismans. As long as the talismans were crushed, they could activate the power within and turn it into an attack. There were also those who held all kinds of weapons. Without true essence, the cultivators' bodies were indeed very weak. However, compared to ordinary people of the Jianghu, they were still much stronger. They knew some martial arts, and when they used them, it was also a kind of method. Haha, brothers, the ancient bridge is open. Once we're on the bridge, we don't need to have any scruples. Kill, kill, kill. The silver-haired man laughed loudly. His silver robe fluttered in the wind. He was full of a free and easy feeling. He patted Yu beside him and said, Yu, in the ancient times, we demons fought against the heavens and the earth. In this difficult environment, we opened up a place for survival. If you want to grow, you have to experience the wind and rain of the outside world. Uncle won't take care of you this time. Go to the ancient bridge and survive with your strength. After he finished speaking, he really didn't look back. He followed the demons and rushed toward the ancient bridge. A trace of determination appeared on Yu Er's jade-like face. She clenched her two small hands and said in an undetectable voice, "Uncle, don't worry. Yu Er definitely won't let you down." Haha, good. It's been a long time since I've encountered such a scene. Today, I, Old Flood Dragon, will start a massacre. The Blood Flood Dragon King smiled evilly. He held his spiked club and walked forward in large strides. The other demon kings also rushed toward the ancient bridge without hesitation. On the ancient bridge, there were cultivators on one side and demons on the other. When they collided, it was like water and fire. A shocking massacre occurred on the spot. Many demons didn't even use weapons. They turned around and let out waves of roars. They actually turned into their true forms. Each of them revealed their true demon form. Their bodies were dozens of feet in size. Their demon bodies were so strong that ordinary magic tools couldn't even leave a scratch on their skin. Weaker magic tools couldn't even injure their muscles and bones. On the contrary, the demons waved their claws and the cultivators under their claws were like tofu. They were instantly torn into pieces. Blood. A thick smell of blood rushed into the sky. Blood spilled on the cloud bridge. The originally snow-white cloud bridge was immediately dyed red. A man should kill. How can I, Di Shitian, miss out on such a scene? Di Shitian saw that on both sides of the island, the human cultivators and the demons of the demon clan rushed onto the ancient bridge one after another. The massacre appeared in front of him in an instant. For a time, that scene caused his blood to boil. Out of the 10 spots, I want one of them. He laughed heartily and stepped forward step by step. With every step he took, his aura became more dignified and powerful. His aura soared into the sky. He didn't hide his domineering aura at all. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 305. They strode forward. Among the two islands, the number of cultivators was the largest, as many as 200,000 to 300,000, while the demon clan only had less than 50,000 to 60,000. On the cloud bridge, there were cultivators everywhere, but the demon clan was even more obvious. Many demonic beasts fully displayed the advantages of their demonic bodies. The demonic beasts of the demon clan reverted to their original forms, and their bodies were huge. The taller ones were dozens of feet, and the smaller ones were dozens of feet. Compared to the cultivators, they were huge creatures. On the cloud bridge, they were also very obvious. They could easily swallow dozens or hundreds of cultivators when they opened their mouths. With a wave of their claws, the weak bodies of the cultivators compared to the demon clan were torn apart one after another. The cultivators weren't here to throw away their lives, either. All kinds of talismans turned into terrifying attacks amidst the crisp sounds of shattering. The most basic ones were fireballs, ice blades, lightning strikes, earth spikes, blades, and so on. Then there were those extremely powerful spells: 9 Flame Dragon, 5 Thunders, Demon Slaying Divine Thunder, Ice Sealing 10,000 Miles, and so on. Those were high-grade spiritual talismans and top-grade talismans that were rarely seen in the cultivation world. At this time, all of them were not stingy at all, and they flew all over the sky. All kinds of defensive talismans were slapped on their bodies as if they were worthless. Those one-time offensive weapons, such as the Heavenly Thunder Seed, Yin Water Thunder, and Yi Wood Divine Thunder, were constantly roaring. When the demon clan killed a large number of cultivators ferociously, these overwhelming attacks also smashed many of the demon clan into a bloody mess. Although the demon clan's body was strong, there was no way to resist the endless bombardment. The blood of the cultivators and the demon clan spilled on the bridge, slowly turning the snow-white cloud bridge into a blood-red color. The blood seeped into the bridge, and not a single drop rolled out. It was mysterious. After death, even the divine soul could not be preserved. There was a mysterious power in Huang Quan. As long as the divine soul appeared, it would immediately be pulled into Huang Quan. It was impossible to transcend. Immortal cultivators could make use of all kinds of treasures, while demons could make use of their powerful demonic bodies. After a short contact, the situation had turned white-hot. Both sides were locked in a stalemate, and neither side was at a disadvantage. Moreover, the demons and cultivators in the front were all fighting and running as fast as they could, trying to reach the other side first. Unfortunately, anyone who wanted to cross the bridge could only rely on their own 2 feet. No one was faster than the other. Bang, bang, bang. Sakra's black robe fluttered in the wind as he strode forward, bringing about a burst of overbearing gale. Every step he took, he naturally emitted an indomitable and powerful aura as if he was the only one in the world. In front of them, the demons who had not yet stepped onto the bridge sensed it and involuntarily moved aside to open up a path. This was a subconscious action due to the imposing manner emitted from Di Shetien. Unknowingly, he was already standing at the top of the Yarrow clan. Could this be the unique characteristic of a Yarrow king who climbed from the bottom all the way to the top? Yue stared blankly at Di Shetien as he strode forward. His entire body was filled with the aura of a Yarrow king. It was as if, at this moment, there was nothing in the world that could overshadow his radiance. No, Yue will not embarrass uncle. Yue swore in her heart as she followed closely behind. Di Shetien followed the path that the demons had parted for him. His path was smooth and straight. Clack. With a soft sound, his left foot had already stepped onto the ancient bridge. At this moment, Sakra clearly felt that the demonic chi in his body, under a mysterious force, was forcibly returned to the demonic palace from his meridians, returning to the 3rd-grade black chain inside the demon refining furnace. Then, the connection between his body and the Yarrow palace was strangely sealed. It was not that the connection was severed, but that his mind could no longer control the Yarrow palace and enter it. Not to mention using his demonic essence. His cultivation, like the other demons and cultivators who had stepped onto the ancient bridge, was imprisoned. Clack. Sakra had already known that there would be such a result, so he wasn't surprised at all. His footsteps didn't stop, and he looked forward. Step by step, he walked forward. In front of him, there were numerous cultivators everywhere. More than half of the demon clan had been caught in the tide of the human sea, suffering a tragic siege one after another. Looking up, the area of 10 meters in front of him was almost completely filled with the figures of immortal cultivators. Another demon has come up, and it's a demon king in human form. Brothers, let's kill him together. One of them had an imposing appearance, and he was dressed in brocade clothes. At a glance, one could tell that these were not ordinary clothes. On his waist, he wore a jade pendant, and on the jade pendant was a mysterious mirror that could divide the 5 elements. It looked very extraordinary. A group of young cultivators gathered around him. They all wore the same jade pendant on their waists. It seemed to be a symbol of their status. However, they were not as mystical as the handsome young man in the middle. Good. Everyone, take out your talismans and kill this demon king. If we succeed, eldest senior brother, you will be praised by the sect master when you return. The surrounding cultivators were clearly led by the man dressed like a young master. One after another, they took out talismans from their pockets. Puff, puff, puff. With a soft sound, the talismans were destroyed. They turned into sharp attacks that rained down on Di Shetien. Not to mention the fireballs, wind blades, and profound ice blades, there were even bolts of lightning as thick as thighs that came crashing down on his head with unimaginable speed. Clack. Di Shetien's gaze swept across the group of cultivators in front of him. He did not stop because of this. He continued to take a heavy step forward. The aura on his body surged like a tide. Under the guidance of his aura, a gust of wind blew around him. With one step, it was as if the majestic aura of Mount Tai was pressing down on him. At some point in time, his right hand had already landed on Tiger Soul's slender hilt. The instant his hand touched the hilt, the aura he emitted suddenly poured into Tiger Soul like a tidal wave. In an instant, he was completely immersed in the saber. There was no sign of his aura. Di Shitian was just like an ordinary person. However, if one looked closely, there was a faint sense of fear that made one shudder. Kill. Clang. A clear sound of the saber being unsheathed rang out. It could not be hidden even in the midst of countless killings. Behind Di Shitian, a golden light shot out like the sun. With a turn of his wrist, Tiger Soul was unsheathed. The golden saber shone with a light that resembled flowing water. The pitch-black soul-devouring orb between the saber and the hilt shone with an evil black light. Tiger Soul used the momentum of taking a step forward and swung it. Horizontally, a golden saber light burst forth. As he swung it, golden afterimages appeared around him, forming a terrifying saber circle around him. This saber had gathered all the aura in his body. There was an awe-inspiring, domineering aura in the saber. Even though he did not pour in any demonic essence, the tip of Tiger Soul forced out inch by inch of saber light. Tiger Soul was sharp to begin with. It was as fast as lightning. Almost 70% of his strength was gathered. Even though there was no demonic essence in this saber, it still contained an immeasurably terrifying power. As the saber light flashed, all kinds of Dharma spells that came at him from all directions were destroyed. Fireballs were shattered, wind blades were scattered, and the fire crows that came whistling were killed. Countless saber shadows connected and covered his entire body. There were no blind spots in this attack. Above his head and in front of his body, countless saber lights burst forth in an instant. The attacks that filled the sky were all destroyed in an instant. One saber break all spells. Clack. Tiger Soul was extremely sharp. Its quality could be said to be hard to find even among divine weapons. Even without demonic essence, its sharpness was enough to cut through Dharma treasures of the same grade. Even if a divine weapon did not have any skills, it could still kill. One saber break all spells. Di Shitian stared at the group of cultivators who were attacking him. He took a step forward and moved Tiger Soul with him. He slashed with the saber. Fat. After a large number of living beings surged into the ancient bridge, the space was small to begin with. With this step forward and Tiger Soul, it just happened to slash the cultivator who was at the front. Tiger Soul was slashed from bottom to top. It slashed with the saber and landed on his body. The sound of the saber entering flesh was heard, and the cultivator was slashed diagonally into two halves. Blood appeared, but it did not land on the ancient bridge. Instead, it was instantly swallowed by Tiger Soul. All the blood in the cultivator's body was drawn. Even his soul was swallowed by the saber. Kill. Blood was drawn with one slash. Di Shitian was even more merciless. Every inch of his flesh and blood was surging with surging power. He wielded Tiger Soul as if it was weightless. Slash, slash, horizontal slash, drag, sweep, all kinds of saber techniques were displayed smoothly under his hands. If one observed carefully, they would realize that his saber technique had reached another realm. When he wielded it, it was natural. There was no trace of axe chi, and it was difficult to find any traces. Often, it would be a slash at the beginning, but the next moment, it would turn into a diagonal slash without any warning. All kinds of saber intents were at will in his heart. It could be said that his saber technique had reached greater mastery. If he continued to advance, it would be the realm of battle techniques. Quick, quick, stop him. Use Dharma treasures and yin lightning to smash him. Don't let him rush over. The handsome cultivator saw that Di Shitian had easily broken through all spells with one slash. Moreover, with just a wave of his hand, he killed one of the cultivators on his side. Sensing the cold murderous aura emitted from him, his expression changed immediately, and he hurriedly shouted. Boom! Boom! Yin lightning bolts were thrown out one after another. However, the saber light flashed in mid-air. The golden saber light of Tiger Soul slashed through like lightning, and it actually dispersed the yin lightning bolts in an impossible manner. Then, with another wave of the saber, another cultivator was slashed into two halves. A life was ended by the saber. Blood, slaughter, it was that simple. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidyen.com to read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.